Hello, everybody, and welcome to the internet's only gaming podcast, the Avocado Gamescast. I'm the only podcast host in the world, Merve.
Hey,
Hey, we've got
coming
a
out hot
great
today.
show lined up for you today. And if it's not great, too damn bad. This is, after all, the only podcast. Today, we're going to discuss a bit of a difficult subject. As many of you have no doubt noticed, the internet is getting crappier. Twitty's not a thing. X, is blocking logged out users. Reddit is melting down, and writers of various media sites are being laid off and replaced with generative AI. So, what we thought we'd do is we'd take a second to chat about how this might affect marketing and community management for video games. It's a topic we discussed last year when Elon Musk first acquired Twitter, but it's a topic that's also well worth revisiting in light of recent events. But before we get to that, let's meet the only two podcast guests in the entire universe. First up, he still insists we hit him up on Friendster. It's the Kappa.
Oh yeah, man, Friendster. That was the jam.
Absolutely. And last but not least, he's been on the same GeoCities Zelda fan site since 1998, making his podcast debut. Give a warm welcome to Captain Blasto.
Hey, hello there.
It's funny you mentioned Friendster because you know how like people are kind of like cramming for these blue sky updates right now. It really feels like an internet throwback to those days. You know what I mean? When it was like, do you remember getting an invite to Gmail?
I
Like
did.
that was like a big deal.
Yeah, and like when Facebook stopped being exclusive to university
Yeah,
students,
universities.
like 2006 or 7 or something.
Like you had to know somebody or like steal like a kid's email address to log in. Yeah, I just always think that's funny that we're back there now. Where like people are fiending for codes and trading them, and there's probably like an eBay aftermarket for codes now. It's just kind of funny. It is a weird internet throwback, but
Honestly, I think it's kind of good because
Yeah.
it's, like, I mean, Threads probably wouldn't even exist if Elon Musk hadn't ruined Twitter.
yeah,
And so, the fact that there is like some competition in that space again and that people are like kind of trying to innovate and be, whoever it'll end up being, but they all kind of are vying to be the next Twitter. And
it's going back to even like Gmail. I remember people were like, "What do I need Gmail for? I have Hotmail or I have Yahoo." You know what I mean?
Sure.
It's like, and now it's like it feels like kind of the same thing. What do I need Twitter for? What do I need Blue Sky? I have Twitter. I have Threads, and it's like, it's not like maybe we're like in that phase again where like you can be innovative, but in a weird way, like I kind of think the future for these apps is like instead of trying to be everything to everybody, just do your one thing really well. And that's very internet like what 1.0 to me.
Yeah.
yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's just like, look, this site is just where you can order pet food. That's it. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be. I think we're gonna enter a real interesting year, honestly.
Yeah, for sure. I remember like when we were talking about when Facebook first opened up, like it was exclusive to university students, and then high schools got it. And I still remember there was like this awkward year where it was just university students and also the high school students, but not all the high schools got added in. So some high school students were um, I really want an account, but my friend at the high school down the street can get it, but I can't.
Now, I'll tell you something really weird. I don't know if this was true in Canada, but in the U.S., if you were in the Army, you got a Facebook invite, actually. Like,
Oh,
you
wow.
could use your .mil, like us.army.mil address, like right around the time that they just started to switch, like to open it up to like high school time, right? And so, like, it was literally like a recruiting thing when I joined the Army. It was like, hey,
You get a
get on
Facebook account.
Facebook.
Yeah,
like 18,
'cause-
19-year-olds who were going to college for the most part, so it was like literally like an advertisement for them, like, hey, we can get you a Facebook. I still remember that. I still remember recruiters saying that. I think it was the funniest thing I've ever heard. Like, oh wow, gee.
Yeah, at that age, it would have been in what we call in Canada grade 12, what you folks call 12th grade. Um, yeah, and I remember like a lot of people were excited to like graduate and get a Facebook account, but then while I was in high school in grade 12, Facebook opened up a little bit. So
Yeah.
they were all
You know,
scared of going off to university.
it did get a little worse as it got less exclusive in a weird way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I feel like our generation especially, we got off Facebook once our parents started getting on it. You know what I
Sure.
mean? And I just know, through my kids and other stuff, they're not interested in Facebook at all. They're all on Instagram. So it's kind of like, it feels like Facebook's a little frozen in time in some ways, where it's like mostly our generation who didn't leave and our parents, and then that's it. So it's kind of weird, right? That social media is gonna end up with like a finite list of people. Yeah, I know it's like 1 billion people, but I think like every year they grow like less than 1% or something like that. Or I think they might have even shrunk a year or two. I don't know. We can figure that out on the link dump. But I think it's extremely small growth now,
Yeah.
where it used to be like by like the tens of percents. So
Yeah, there's nowhere for that to go. Like everyone who wants to be on it is already on it, and the rest of us are staying as far away as possible.
what I see, especially with my kids, they're younger, right? They're 12, 13, that age, but they're getting into that age where they're starting to, want to be on social media and stuff. But they actually really do pay a lot more attention to their privacy. Like they assume that companies a lot more are gonna, like not keep their stuff private, but they do it in a way where like, well, this company knows this about me, but I'm not comfortable sharing this. And I think Facebook kind of felt more like all in, like they're going to know everything about you. And I wonder if that's going to be one of those things, like when you start to get to like, hey, these are hyper specific apps or for this specific thing, maybe that's going to be one selling point. Like, hey, this app treats your privacy a little bit better, in regards to certain things. So
I know I pay $100 a year for email specifically because of that.
yeah.
So I would not touch Gmail at this point.
Oh, I've been pwned on my Yahoo, my ancient, like my very first email account, probably like 15 times. You know what I mean? Like CD Projekt got hacked, Zynga got hacked. I think the people I buy my glasses from got hacked. And after a while, you're like, who cares?
I actually deleted it was Blasto 2236, which was the Resident Evil 2 combo safe code in the original PS1 version, at gmail.com. And I'd had that since like the earliest days of Gmail. And I actually just deleted the account wholesale. Like I downloaded my archive so I could throw it in the mail app on my Mac as like a, locally stored mail archive, but the account itself doesn't exist anymore.
It's weird though, right? Like that we've gotten to that point where it's just like we can throw away whole email accounts, because I've slowly migrated from my Yahoo. So it's basically just the email I give out to Radio Shack, who needs my fucking email for some reason when I bought batteries, 20 years ago. So like I know everything in there is spam, so I don't even check it. It's just become the email I give as default. So when it gets pwned for the millionth time, I don't care, So
yeah,
I don't know. It's like a disposable, address, or like a burner phone almost, but it's just been my 20-year-old email account.
That's
I
what I
use this
use
service.
like my. Sorry, go ahead.
Sorry, I was just going to say this is not a paid advertisement, but I use this service.
Unless they want to
Hey.
sponsor us, then.
I'm sure they would love to, but anyway, it's called Hey, and it has this feature called the screener, where the first time anyone emails you, you can decide whether or not they can email you, whether it just gets screened out entirely, or like where you want it to go. So they have like a regular inbox, and then there's like one for like newsletters and marketing emails, and then another one for like receipts and stuff that you may want to keep.
That's really interesting. We use something similar on the Avocado, of course. Me and Merve, both being mods, are used to it, where it's like your very first post, no matter what it is, no matter how innocuous, goes right to Automod to be looked at. And it is cut down on what we call drive-by posters.
Yeah.
1,000,000%. Because there's a lot of people who just, I'm having a bad day. I just want to make other people mad too. I'm going to go into this place and talk some shit,
Yeah.
And it's unnecessary. We all know it, but it happens. And it ruins other people's days. So just having that one extra, do you even need to read this, is such a good idea,
Yeah.
It'll be a feature that Yahoo will charge eventually for, because I think their email is all based on like paying for, like, what is like Yahoo Mail Plus or something now?
I don't know. I had a Yahoo account like 16, 17 years ago.
Yeah.
I haven't touched it since then. because they changed my security questions without telling me.
Oh, wow.
So I still had my password. I could log in, but I couldn't change any of my information.
That
So
is
it's like,
insane.
this is useless now. So I got mad at support. I'm like, fine, you don't have me as a client anymore. Like, whatever. All we were doing was selling you ads anyway. So
Yeah, exactly. Getting hacked and selling you ads. Oh,
yeah,
no.
a 16-year-old cannot really talk to the manager, right?
But yeah, so that's kind of what I was been thinking. Spending a lot of time thinking about these past couple weeks with those codes flying and people feeling excited for social networking a little bit. You know what I mean? A little bit again, and it's like, where's everybody going? Who's going where? Does this place have this guy? Who's the equivalent over here? Like, making little groups and stuff. It does feel very old internet to me, and I'm kind of excited about it. Like, not that I'll actually join any of that stuff or do anything meaningful on it, but I do like when things kind of feel new and fresh again.
We're
Yeah,
also
and
getting like fun real-time disasters. Like, remember when Hive was the biggest thing for 2
Yeah.
weeks,
Yeah.
and then they exposed a security flaw in it, and then the whole service went down.
Yeah, there was like Dig. I remember at the beginning of the pandemic, there was Marco Polo. That was a big thing for like a day, and then everybody's like, "Nope, we're going with Zoom for some reason." And
well, which is nuts because like a year before the pandemic, Zoom got caught like installing like a remote server on
Yeah.
Macs.
like you could turn
and-
it on whenever you wanted or something, right?
Yeah, and it like when they got caught, they were just like, yeah, whatever, fuck you. That was their whole attitude about it. And so during the pandemic, like when everybody started using it, I was like, there is no way in hell I'm ever installing that app on anything that I use.
And then your work
ever.
is like, "Yeah, you are."
Well, luckily at the time I worked for Apple, and
Oh,
so
really? There
they
you go.
they actually used WebEx, so surprisingly, and not FaceTime.
Or
But,
everybody else, it was like, "Nope, here you go. You're using this no matter what."
See, WebEx is a gigantic pain in the ass to use, but at least it's secure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's the difference.
exactly. Yeah, Zoom is just a nightmare. I can't believe that like major companies are using Zoom. That no one in their IT department was like, "Fuck no."
We started it, and then I think exactly that happened because we slowly migrated over to Teams. Like now, pretty much all our meetings are on Teams. And there was an email at my company not too long ago that was like, "Get Zoom off your computer, like completely get it off." And I was like, "Oh, what's going on there?"
I
But
can't believe Slack hasn't implemented group video calls.
Yeah.
Like, it's
Huh.
insane.
like for our family stuff, we just use Discord. But I get that's not a businessy type feel, and Slack has a little more of a business feel to it.
Yeah, at work we also use Teams, which I'm
Yeah.
glad for because I did not want to have to. I mean, I have work computers now, but like, I just did not want to have to deal with Zoom all over again. That would have
Yeah,
been
same.
bad.
And when your whole office is on like Microsoft anyway, Teams is just a button click away, from integrating stuff you actually use all the time. So
Oh yeah,
it's
it's
not as-
integrated with like Outlook, calendar, everything.
yeah, exactly. So I
Works
don't have
pretty
to
nicely.
figure
I'm
out.
sure that's what I'm going to be using at my new job very soon. So
Oh well, good luck with it. It's not bad. It's a lot. The annoying sound, the alert sound is not as annoying to me as Zoom was. Zoom, I would almost want to hide when it would go.
I don't think I've used Zoom since, 2021 was the last time I fired up Zoom. I'm very happy I haven't had to fire it up in a while.
Yeah.
But like, speaking of all this internet stuff, the reason this all came up is because, like I alluded to in the intro, the internet has gotten, like, in the past couple of months, significantly and noticeably worse. Like, it's been slowly getting crappier, and like slowly websites are becoming less and less usable, more and more inundated with algorithmic content that isn't exactly what we want to see. But in short succession, a whole bunch of stuff really happened. Like the generative AI hype boom really took off, and companies started like literally replacing their writers with ChatGPT and other bots that crawl the internet or various corpuses of text and like churn out garbage. Twitter has gone completely off the rails, and now logged out users can't see tweets. Reddit has kind of melted down with its user base and open revolt. And this has all kind of happened in quick succession and is like notably affected games media, and has also affected like game companies and how they reach consumers and how like developers, especially indie developers, reach each other. So what I want to get your thoughts on are like, where do you think this is going in terms of how the games industry is going to respond to this?
Yeah. So thinking about this, of course, I think about live services. Live services games are on the come up, right? They're everybody. What Sony developing 6 of them, 8 of them? That's a lot.
On paper, 12 of them, but
Yeah,
like,
that's a lot.
who knows?
But like,
Who knows whether fair games will actually come out?
It's like all they have Bungie doing now is like
Yeah.
teaching all their other developers how to make their games a good live
Yeah.
service game.
And as a Destiny player, one thing I've noticed is Bungie really relies on their Twitter presence. They have the server status, they have the fun community one, and then they have kind of like the community manager one, right?
Epic does the same with Fortnite.
Yeah.
And Reddit. They're also pretty active on Reddit, but
So-
Twitter's the big one.
Yeah, I agree. And Twitter's good for just like, hey, this thing's happening right now. We're going to work on it, and it should be fixed in an hour, right? I don't think there's been a good official equivalent to that. And I think where they're probably going to end up going is to maybe stuff like Discord. But Discord also tends to become a Wild West. You know what I mean?
It's too hard to keep up with unless there's like, only a dozen or so like really active people in the server. If there's like 100 or more,
Yes.
I can't keep up with.
Yeah,
that.
you
It's
couldn't
also
even
like
the
a-
old IRC chat rooms back in the early days of the internet,
I remember
where it was
those.
just a madhouse.
I think you can have a Discord for your indie platformer. I don't think you can have one for Destiny 3. You know what I mean?
Correct.
It just
Yeah.
does not make sense.
It's not.
It would be. So you're taking away that official communication for if you're losing out on Twitter, because somebody pointed out in the Destiny subreddit, like, you literally, if you just want to see why the servers are down, you can't go look at the Bungie help tweet if you don't have an account, right?
Yeah.
And that's
I think once Blue Sky opens up, they're gonna take everybody from.
I
Twitter.
think so too.
It's Twitter for people who loved Twitter. Mastodon is Twitter for people who hated Twitter, and for basically developer types, because you basically have to like be a little techie to even like start using it. I think they're starting to fix that, but yeah, it's going to be Blue Sky. I'm on there, and they're kind of like figuring out like what their vibe is going to be like over there right now, which is kind of fun. But they're building a community. So far, there's not a lot of terrible people there, which is good. Yeah, I think that's going to be it. Once they get everything stable enough to open that up to the public.
Yeah, I would say that there's also a spot in there for Reddit still, with acknowledging that right now that place seems like it's on fire as well.
If they fire Steve Huffman, then yes, I think they could be all right. But like as soon as Apollo for Reddit went down, I stopped using Reddit
And
entirely.
I think a lot of people, that's the same story. It's like they just don't care because all they see right now is IPO in the future, right? And you have to figure out how to monetize the site. But I'm just saying, from like a game dev, I want you to know news about my game. I think subreddits there's a certain size where subreddits are great, and then once you exceed that size, you might as well just be screaming down a hallway, at the library or something. But I don't know what that number is, but I do think that a good community manager can manage what they want their subreddit to feel like, instead of it just being constant open warfare on other players, the devs, streamers, however the enemy of the week goes. But
You can never tell whom it's going to end up being, right? Like,
yeah, but getting to what do they call it, the enshittification of the internet, right?
Yep.
Yeah,
I
as
love
Cory Doctorow
that.
would say, yeah.
I love how that piece like spread like wildfire. It's so good.
It's just, we are like talking right now in 2023 about a very basic problem that we figured out 15 years ago on the internet, and that's how to get information to people when they want it, right? This was a problem that was solved, and now it feels like we're having to go back to the well and figure out, okay, well, we figured this problem out before, but now it got crappy. How do we fix it again? But we really broke it ourselves. Not us, but companies and stuff. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, like, I think you're right. I think it's going to be a bit of Blue Sky. I think it's still going to be a bit of Discord if you're a smaller, indie level type studio. And I think it is going to be something like communities, like subreddits, where the people who really, really, really are passionate can sit there and kind of stoke the fires. But
Yeah, what I do think about Discord though, the problem with it, like for as you suggest for a bigger game, is that Discords are just not searchable. They're not crawlable.
yeah,
Like if I type some search terms into Google, I'm not going to get a Discord chat room result back.
right.
And so it becomes really hard to maintain information. If I need to look at something that happened 2 weeks ago, I'm out of luck. Whereas I still have those search facilities on Twitter and Reddit. And so
And even
Discords
finding
are
the
like,
Discord to begin with, like
Yeah.
most of the time I would get an invite to a server from their subreddit.
Right, exactly, yeah.
exactly.
It's
So
not
without
like
that, like I don't even know how to find them.
I think what Twitter did that a lot of people are going to try to figure out is if you search for the company name, usually their Twitter shows up in their social feed or whatever, right? Discord doesn't have that same feel, You can't just go to discord.com/whatever you're looking for, right? Even if it's a studio, sometimes they split it up by games, sometimes they, so I think there's definitely a space there, but subreddits and Twitter are much more searchable than Discords, right? And then Discords tend to okay, this is just personal feeling. I mean, I've been in all three of these for a lot of different games. Twitter's like the more official place and the place where you go to complain about the game, right? Subreddits are for the people who are really, really into the game and want to feel like they're influencing game development, getting in devs' ear, telling them what to do, in a good or a bad way, and also complain about the game, right? And then I feel like the third spot has been Discord, where it's the devs more are talking to you, but also you have those channels where you're talking about hyper specific things like mechanics and things like that in the game. But I don't know that community managers like that is what I would guess. I think they probably want to have a way to bring all three of those groups together, right? The super passionate people who want to learn about the game, the people they want to tell about the game who are maybe new or just getting into it, and also the community that just wants to help develop and build the game. And I don't think any one place fits that for all three of those groups, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think there is kind of, like you mentioned, a solution that we already had, which was official forums, right? And it was all centralized kind of in one place for each game or each studio, each developer. And then as things evolved and social media grew huge, the official line became, okay, we'll meet the players where they are, which
Exactly,
was
yeah.
on Reddit, on Twitter, on Facebook, etc. And now these platforms are collapsing and people are fleeing sinking ships like rats. I wonder if it might not be a good idea to just bring back official forums. Like, yes, you're then kind of liable for whatever gets posted there and you need good moderation. But, you have full message control then, which you don't have in the Wild West of Reddit or Twitter.
Right. And I think moderation to me is where the entire internet is going. I think people have learned a lesson, and it's you just can't let it be the Wild West. You push away lots and lots of people by just saying, okay, well, we're going to trust that you're all adults and be nice to each other and just hoping for the best. It never works. The worst rises to the top so quickly.
You push away marginalized people especially, but even people who just don't want to see crap, right?
Yeah, that's exactly where I'm at. I'm just I don't want to wade through shit to get to the good stuff. Do that for me. If this person is posting stuff or talking about stuff and it's not important, well then shield me from it or put it somewhere else or find a way to stick it where people don't have to deal with it. But more and more, I think people want something. I think the buzzword now is curated, right? It's not moderated; it's curated. But I think more and more that's what people want is they want a place where they can go and they can say, hey, these people, they talk like me, they sound like me, and if you're not like me, we'll talk to you for a little bit, and then if you're just not going to fit in, then hey, find another spot, which is coincidentally kind of where we hang out. But I do think that's kind of where things are going, subreddits particularly. I think part of the Reddit revolt is they want to feel like they're in charge of their subreddit, and Reddit isn't letting them.
I think like especially Twitter and to a certain extent places like Tumblr and Instagram thought that they could solve the curation problem algorithmically.
Hmm.
That like you would we would recommend to you what you want to see based on your behaviors. And that would kind of self moderate. And then they wouldn't
Right.
have to worry so much about moderation or taking stuff down. And Twitter has proven never to be really good at showing people algorithmically what they want. Facebook has proven to be, as they've gone more and more algorithmic, absolute garbage at this. And now Tumblr is inching in that direction, and people are revolting because Tumblr is the one place where you really self-curated your own experience.
Right. And I don't have like the facts or figures to back this up, but this is what I think happens, right? I think these places, what drives them is engagement points, right? People
Yeah.
talking. And if you just create communities where just everybody agrees, I bet you they don't have as much engagement as a place where you would every now and then open the gate to a couple shit stirrers. You know what I mean? And they drive the conversations. Everybody gangs up on this person, or everybody, no, this is like dunking is a sport on the internet now. There's no escaping it, right? So when people come in with a bad opinion, I feel like there's such a rush, a stampede to point out to them why you don't agree with them, that I think that the algorithm likes that, right? Because it's saying, hey, these guys aren't talking as much about this stuff. What do we do? Oh, well, we let in a couple people who maybe have the opposite opinion, or we open the floodgates, or we do this or we do that. But that's the conspiracy part, I think, is that I think that Facebook wants the arguing. I think they want the fighting. I don't think they want carefully moderated and curated news feeds. I think they want you to be mad at your uncle that you haven't talked to in 5 years. I do.
Yeah, and YouTube does the same thing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think YouTube genuinely believes that I want to see some like alt-right shithead's opinion on Star
Yes.
Wars,
Yeah.
right? But they're going to recommend that to me, so I'll watch part of the video, get angry, and leave an angry comment below about how stupid and bigoted I think this guy is. And they do the same for the alt-right shitheads who seek this stuff out,
Yeah.
because then they'll recommend them some video that like some feminist media analysis, and they'll go leave an angry like anti-feminist screed underneath that woman's video. Like that's how that's how this thing operates.
It took me a good year or two to like artfully curate my YouTube algorithm and like really finesse it into like, trust me, dude, I'm never gonna watch any Fox News clip you show me. So like, you can just stop now.
Now YouTube just recommends me Japanese math rock and like tennis clips.
Yeah.
That's all I see.
And so once it does figure you out, it's really good, like startlingly good.
Yeah.
All it takes though is 1 hour of cruising through the wrong videos, and I'm telling you, it goes right back to where it was.
No, for sure.
Gotta make sure, like, I used to do this thing where every, like, 6 months I'd go on a K-pop binge on YouTube. And now I'm like, no, I can't do that. It's gonna mess up my like, perfect algorithm.
My dad and stepmom came to visit me about a year ago, and they were planning a camping trip where they were going to be, like, baking a bunch of stuff in, like a kind of camping Dutch oven sort of rig thing. And so they were looking up a bunch of YouTube videos on my Apple TV about how to do that and what recipes are good for it. And Jesus, all the like camping, cooking stuff that I saw for like the next 3 months after that was
and it's such a weird pipeline, especially on YouTube, where it goes from like camping to survivalism to like
oh yeah,
alt-right, like
Flat
All,
Earth.
like,
men
prepper
going the
stuff.
wrong way. You're like, how
Like,
did I
end
get
of
here?
days. Like, literally the guys from Far Cry 5.
Yeah, exactly. Men who were meant to sun your taint. Remember when that was a thing? Is it still a thing?
Peridium
the
sunning?
Tucker thing where he was
Yeah.
tanning his balls. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did hear about that.
Yeah, so you're always just one video away from being right back in that hellhole. So it's weird. And I said this probably, I don't know, 2 weeks ago in the avocado, but I really think the internet is just worse in every way. Like if you would have told, I don't know, I'd probably go back as far as like 2015, 2016. If you would have said, hey, look, in about 5, 6, 7 years, the internet's going to be shit. You're not going to want to get on and read about things. I don't like, and I've got a pretty good news feed, and I've got a pretty good this, pretty good that. I don't have the default subreddits, all that kind of stuff. And it's just, man, I just always feel like I'm one click away from having a bad day. You know, like, yeah, I was in a good mood before, but
Yeah, I've got a buddy who he sends me links like about terrible news stories at like 6, 7 in the morning, and I'm like, dude, you have got to stop
what do
doom
we want me to do with
scrolling
this?
like the moment you roll
Yeah.
out of bed. That's a terrible way to start your day.
It's
Like,
like take
Yeah.
that
do
extra
that.
hour to sleep, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just want you to be aware. I want you to be informed. You know, it's important that we know this. Like, oh man, is it? You know.
Yeah, there's this comedian Chris Porter who I really love, and one of the reasons I love him is because he does not talk about politics really on
Mhm.
stage at all. And so I honestly don't know what he thinks, but it it just doesn't really factor into his act. But he had this great bit about how he hasn't watched the news in like 6 years, and
Mhm.
he's like, you don't have to, right? Like they don't, but nobody quizzes you on it.
You know, and I think you know, because you're always going to get into that internet argument. Well, you know, I want to be informed. It's important for me to be informed. I can't not pay attention and I get that, but like, I do think that it is so much right now. I don't think that the human mind was ever really designed to be as plugged into other human minds at the rate we are. You know,
No, it's too much information all
yeah.
the time. It's just a constant barrage. Yeah, we
When
can't
you're
take it.
talking about how game studios find their spot in like the dialogue or the conversation and stuff, I think a lot of them are really smart about not trying to do that. I don't know, like maybe this is like a Twitter 1.0 thing. I don't know if anybody's figured this out yet, but like, you know, it'd be like, hey everybody, happy Arbor Day. Let's go plant some trees in Genshin Impact or something. You know, like try to tie, you know what I mean, like real world stuff to their game. I see that less and less, and I feel like the tweets now are for the people who want to stay informed
Yeah.
and stick with that. And that's where I think the hardest thing for community managers to do is to figure out what's the right formula for the people who follow their game, because it's different for every game. You know, getting that level of engagement for like a Genshin Impact where you better be putting something out every single week. Fortnite, that's another example, all right? What's this week's thing? What's this season? What's this that? Like, you have to stay on top of it, but also you've got games that like maybe they slowly drip feed DLC every couple months, like your Total War Warhammers, right? How do you keep people engaged and in their mind, you know, as nothing's coming out in that game for the next 4 months, 5 months, 6 months, right?
The Animal Crossing New Horizons marketing team must have been so thrilled. Like their job was just done for them by the pandemic.
Just literally stay in your house and do this thing that we made. That's it. You don't even
Yeah.
worry about anything else. I like considering that how a lot of these games really, like, at some point I'm sure there's focus groups and this and that, but they say, hey, here's the audience and this is who we're trying to push to, and this is what the research data says that people will be into it. But every now and then you get that weird outlier, right? Like, I don't know, like I call it the bronies of the world, where you kind of like, wait a minute, this game is popular, or this thing is popular with these people, we had no idea. So I think that you'd be dumb just to say these are the only people that are into our stuff, but community managers more and more, they have a really tough job to figure out actually who's playing their games and where their market is, if that makes sense. Like, you can only grow Animal Crossing with diehard Nintendo fans so much. They're going to buy it because they've got a Switch and they need something to play, right? So is that who you stick with engaging? Or, you know, maybe say, hey, you know, COD bros, guess what?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing with New Horizons. It became super popular outside the typical Nintendo
Exactly,
demographic.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
it
like-
also came out on the same day as Doom Eternal, which was like a meme, which probably helped.
Yeah, it was it was Barbie and Oppenheimer before Barbenheimer.
We
Very
just
much, yeah.
stumbled onto something, right? That
Yeah.
was the original Barbenheimer, right? So, I don't know. I think the future for this, like you put in our little pre-show notes, AI, I think is going to be huge in this weird space of, hey, we know you're interested in this. This is what you search, you know, the algorithm type stuff. But also, here's how much you care about this, right? If you're looking up, you know, Destiny raid guides every single month, and I'm going to pump it into your feed so much, you're not going to be able to handle it. But if every 6 months you look up, you know, hey, what's the new Total Warhammer race play like? You know, paying for that is where the future is going to be, is that level of smart advertising, not just showing you what you want to see, but when you want to see it, right? That's going to be where I think the AI really starts to play in, and then community
Like-
managers figuring out, have I overwhelmed you with shit about this, or is this, me talking to you about it getting you more interested, basically?
So you see, you see this as playing a role more in not like generative AI or chatbots, more in the
No.
role of like improved recommender algorithms.
Yeah. Predicting when you're going to be interested in stuff rather than
Yeah.
just with the algorithm is right now, which is, well, you searched up Total War, so you must want to see Total War. So we're going to charge, what is it, Creative Assembly, $5 million to send you nothing but Total War shit, but I'm already playing Total War, so I don't need Total, you know what I mean? Like, I think the future is going to be, hey, plug that into Steam, find out how much Total War he's been playing. What's his playtime like? Is he thinking about getting back into it? Is it something he's been playing with friends, or all his friends playing it? Is he not buying the new stuff? Is he buying the new stuff? Those are the sorts of things that, like,
AI
feels very
testers are
cyber.
really good at figuring that out,
Right.
in a way that Google's search algorithms never really have, or their I guess I should say like their ad algorithms never really have been. Like, if I look up a mattress in a box and then I buy one, I'm still seeing ads for like Casper and all these things for like months afterwards, and it's like, dude, I already bought the thing. Like, I'm not gonna buy another mattress for 10 years.
I searched for some dumb, like, knitted night hoodie. I don't know how to describe it. Like, it's like night suit of armor, but a hoodie. I still get ads for that thing. I bought that thing 6 years ago, and it came in, it was a piece of junk, and I already threw it out. Yes, I still see it. It's like, you're just basically advertising me my biggest regret.
Whereas I think those AI models are like designed to mimic human behavior in such a way that they will account for stuff like that.
Right, you've bought it, you've played
Yeah.
it, you're burned out on it. I mean, I think that would be a really interesting way to combine the AI with the community messaging, which is like, like World of Warcraft particularly, I think about this. You know how they'll do like every couple years, months, whatever. It's like, hey, come on back. We're going to give you some free game time. Go ahead and log in.
Fortnite just dropped some Futurama skins, and it's like,
Yep.
I may only play a round or two, but I'm definitely going to log on and spend like $30
I
to get all
guarantee-
of those skins.
I think as long as these algorithms get good at differentiating between like things you buy regularly versus things you buy rarely.
Yep.
Like, if I buy granola bars, I'm a granola bar guy, right? But if I buy a new toilet, it doesn't mean I'm super into toilets, right?
You got to get all these toilets.
Gotta get all the limited edition toilets for my one toilet apartment.
The Fortnite is such a perfect example because I'm sure there's some algorithm somewhere that says, hey, this guy is a 40-year-old white dude from the suburbs. He's a Futurama fan. Here's all the data. Here's all this, right? But then there's a total different set of data that says, hey, this guy's got kids, or he's got this, or he plays Fortnite, or he logs on once a month. And they're not talking to each other. But I know there's got to be a way to just basically let the AI say, look, odds are this is in this person's wheelhouse. Let's sell it to them. Let's put it there. But also, let's just start getting them Fortnite news. And maybe Fortnite, or maybe Fortnite Futurama is not what they're looking for. But shit, 6 months we know the Simpsons are going to be in there, so let's keep this person on the AI dial-up. I think we're going to enter a real weird world with AI. I don't think it's like Terminator shit. I think it's going to be like walking, like in all the cyberpunk movies, like in all your Blade Runners and shit. Like, you walk through the city and like the beautiful woman hologram is like, we know you're lonely. Like, that to me, that's where AI is going. It's like, it's predicting your mood. It's trying to get ahead of where you're feeling and where your moods are, and I think gaming, to me, I've talked about that a ton. Gaming is a mood to me a lot of times.
Yeah.
I'm playing games because I'm in a certain mood. I'm mad at the world, so I'm playing Mortal Kombat. I'm looking to chill out, so I'm running some Civ. And I think that once they figure that out, that's where the future of like AI and like community advertising and management goes.
Yeah, and
Can you imagine you're just like walking down the street and there's sensors reading your pheromones, like sensing how depressed you are. And when you get home, you fire up your PlayStation or your PlayStation 8 or your Xbox 23, and like there's an ad on the screen saying like, feeling lonely? Why not play like, Companion Waifu Simulator 2058? Like, that's where I think we're heading.
on the flip side of how dumb those ad algorithms can be sometimes with stuff like one-time purchases, I mean the whole reason people have been convinced for years that their phones are like secretly recording them. It's not that that's what's going on because you like talk about a thing with your friends and then you see an ad for it a few hours later. The reason that happens is because Google has so much information about you. It's so good at predicting your behavior that it knows what you're going to talk about with your friends and look for before you even do it.
Yeah. It's wild how things have gotten like that. And I mean, I don't know. Like I try to resist sometimes. Like I'll see an ad like, oh, I actually do want that. They nailed me. I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna click on it because I'm gonna end up on some weird algorithm of getting this for like with the mattress for like the next 6 months of this. They're gonna keep trying to sell me this shit if I don't say no now.
You're gonna become one of those like mattress review bros. Yeah. They exist. Like. Can you imagine being a mattress influencer? Where did all the extra mattresses go? Like, you need a storage unit for them.
You can't return them. You basically have to just donate them.
Well, one of the biggest, like, I don't know, indie mattress companies right now they're called Avocado Mattresses, right? And so just by the
That's
fact
a sponsor.
I know, just by the fact I post there so much, I get nonstop ads for them. I'm like, Jesus, I hate my mattress, but I almost won't buy a mattress for them because it's just like, all right, now me and you are at war. You think I'm perfect for you, and I don't. It's very like, I don't know, like bad romance relationship stuff.
It's extremely one-sided.
I hate you, and I don't even know who you are.
It's like people appealing you, dude.
I didn't use that.
One last thing on this whole subject. So we've kind of like discussed how the bigger guns can still get the word out in this new world that we're in. Where does this leave indies who've relied a lot on Twitter to get the word out and to network with each other?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, indie hype right now doesn't really come from those indie shows. I know you're probably more into indie stuff than me, but in general, I think both of us will watch E3 type things and be like, okay, that pixel art platformer about, the Norwegian heavy water plant sabotage sure looks cool, but I don't know. I'll have to wait to see, right? So much of that, I don't know if it ever translates into purchases, right? Like I'm talking about like the E3 style hype.
Yeah.
Things, right. So I don't know that I'm sure some does, but I'm sure that indies have always struggled with, we're not going to get hype out of the E3 type stuff. So where do we go from there? And I do feel like in a weird way, it's like, we're just a couple of friends making a game about, orc basketball or whatever. And they have to almost be charming in like a very like calculated way kind of. And I wonder if that's going to kind of be like the future is almost like Etsy, right? Like, hey, I'm just trying to make it. I make, quilts out of my house or this like that. And I'm not knocking that. I'm saying that's like a good idea, but that's almost where I think, a lot
it's
of
like itch.io, right?
Yeah, itch or
yeah, exactly.
Humble maybe, or like maybe even Kickstarter again, because if you look at a lot of the indie explosions for certain genres, it was hand in hand with Kickstarter, right? Hey, wouldn't you like to play another CRPG, this dead genre that everybody says sucked, but you have all these good memories of fucking Baldur's Gate or, all these other games? I mean,
Speaking of fucking Baldur's Gate.
Yeah, right.
No, we'll get to that in a little bit.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's like CRPGs got reborn off of Kickstarter. I would say in a weird way, so did a couple other genres. Fighters, I mean, saw a real big resurgence after, like, it was Skullgirls and a couple of other ones,
Adventure
I think Dive Kick was on there.
Point and clicks came almost completely back just due
to
Kickstarter.
Thanks to Broken Age.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I would say, go ahead.
I was just going to say that, like, I think these, like, your Double Fines, they're just simply not going to exist anymore outside of, like, Microsoft Game Pass or Apple
Studio
Arcade.
Pets that they allow to exist. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is unfortunate, but
like good that they're allowed to exist. I'm glad for Double Fine, but I wish some of these could continue to operate independently. And like to Kappa's earlier point about like E3 presentations, I feel like if an indie's already at the stage that they'd be getting a birth at E3 or SGF, I feel like they're already big enough that this isn't really an issue for them.
Mhm.
I'm thinking about, say, like smaller indies which don't get that birth, which are like, as Cap suggested, going to go to the equivalent of Etsy or itch.io. I wonder how they're going to build community going forward, and whether that's going to be in like these dev discords, or maybe everyone's on Blue Sky now, and that's where the word gets out. Because Twitter was an invaluable resource for them.
Yeah, I agree. Go
I
ahead.
know I've ended up in a dev Discord for every game I've bought on itch, which is only a few, but still, like I've ended up going in there, engaging directly with the developers. In one case, actually playtesting one of their upcoming games, um, and and so yeah, I mean, I think that they found kind of a happy home on Discord. I don't know that that will change because those hardcore enthusiasts are going to find them on itch and then follow them to Discord.
So I'm kind of in a similar boat. And earlier when I said that, I feel like Discords are where people want to. I think I said like something like tell the devs what to do. And I don't exactly mean that, but I'm in the same spot as you. There's definitely a couple games where I'm like, I'm going to follow this closely. I'm going to join the Discord. I do tend to feel like those turn into a little bit like empty suggestion box for me to armchair develop a little bit. And I guarantee that's a little bit annoying, but I don't know how else you do it because those are like the most interested people in your game, right? I'm thinking about that must sound dumb because I don't remember the exact name. What is it? Stormgate?
Yes.
Yeah. So Stormgate has a pretty active subreddit in Discord, right? But like I go in there and like it's like don't focus on esports. Esports are what killed StarCraft, or like don't make cosmetics available. You know, everything should be pure, nothing anachronistic. You know, just and it's a lot of armchair developing type stuff, and like I don't know like how you translate that passion because it is. I mean, like it's people who really legitimately give a shit about the game. I don't know how you translate that to being like, hey, stay excited about our game, but also like let us cook. You know, like let us do our thing. Because I guarantee it's got to be frustrating at some point to just kind of have to always deal with that. You know, and that's kind of why I thought of immediately of Discord as being the place where I could see you get your most engaged, but also you're kind of like outlier, a little bit too overbearing type communities.
Yeah, you do end up with a little bit of that trade off where you do get the extra engagement, but also, yeah, people who want to armchair develop, people who might be a little too invested in the game
Because
sometimes.
weirdly, what happens is if you don't do that thing, if you go ahead, all right, look, we're gonna have these cosmetics in the game. Well, you've lost me as a customer for life, right? It is the most invested you can be on it, but it only takes like that one little thing to basically, shoot them off into, space about never caring about your game again because you had a Valentine's Day themed supply depot, which is an actual thing in the Stormgate community. So people are really
They're mad about the red and pink.
yeah,
Like,
yeah. So they basically said like, hey, we're gonna have a little, like Valentine's themed set for like, cosmetics, and people are like, this is how games are ruined. It's very like contentious in there because they just want to have a little fun, thing like that. So I don't know. It's so weird right now. I'm not saying it's like that for every game, but I do notice that the discords tend to be more suggestion box than I feel comfortable with. I'm like, hey, good luck, make a good game. Like I'm not in there telling them what to do at all. But
yeah, sometimes it's almost like you don't want that two-way street, which
yeah,
is can kind of be the advantage of something like Twitter,
yep,
where you could turn off replies or you don't have to engage with the replies, right? And that's kind of the downside of Discord, where it is expected to be that two-way communication where you're supposed to like engage with individual replies, and like at a certain point that's exhausting. Like
yeah.
what are we paying people to even do, right?
Well, a part of it I think is like the platform itself, like kind of inspires certain types of reactions. Feel like if you talk to a mod on Discord, you're expecting to have a dialogue, not just like
Yeah.
not just like, oh, okay, that's cool. Like on Twitter, you might get a reply, and if you do, it might be like, oh, hey, thanks, that's neat, right? So I don't know. I think part of it is the platform where you posting on that platform inspires people to think like, okay, well, if I tell this guy I don't like this, we're going to talk about it, and maybe he'll listen to me, and things will change. Whereas I don't think you get that at all on Twitter. But then like on subreddit, it's kind of 50-50, right? You might have some
Right.
developer jump in, but that you also might just get like, oh, okay, message received. See you later.
And I mean, while you need playtesters like to get your thing out the door and give you feedback, I mean, if fans had too much input, like most game companies wouldn't exist anymore.
Right.
I mean, to some degree, they have to ignore a lot of it. It's like having a 5-year-old, where like you can't listen to everything they say all the time. Or it will drive you literally insane.
As a Destiny player and a Fortnite player, I can tell you, those live services, they have a challenge because it's like you get people who say this isn't fun anymore. Like kind of what Diablo's going through right now, right? People quitting it left and right and saying this isn't fun anymore. And I think legitimately, Blizzard, when they made that season, they're like, we didn't change it that much, like I think they're probably sitting there scratching their heads like, how do we go from game of the year, we've revived the series, to this isn't fun anymore in one season, so
well, my understanding is it wasn't just the season; it was the nerf patch they released
to slow down gameplay.
Ahead of the patch, ahead of the season. I think that really pissed people off because it made some builds unviable. And like anytime you're making a game less fun or slower, people inevitably get mad, but the flip side of that coin is power creep, right? And then over time that builds up till by end game you're doing 20 million damage per hit, but you need to be fighting against enemies with 100 million HP.
Right, yeah. And I mean, that's I play Lord of the Rings online still. That's exactly what's going on this week. They're doing what's called a stat squish, right? So my character with literally 1 million hit points that does 2 million damage per hit is going to be, take off a couple zeros at the end there. But I think you maybe last saw this. I mean, I don't think this is a unique problem to Blizzard, but Division 2, I was really into. I actually really enjoyed it, had a great time with it. And then what they did was they did kind of exactly what Diablo did, which was like a go slow patch, right? Hey, we're going to knock all this stuff off. These things are going to do less damage. Everything to take a little bit longer. And same kind of response. People just like flew from the game because you kind of did a little bit different than what me and you agreed we were going to do. So,
yeah, I think you see that especially with in response to people who like play through the game super duper quickly. Mm-hmm. So the devs see on their other end, okay, like 15% of players have made it through end game in like 5 days.
Yeah.
And they kind of expect that curve to continue where it is. And so they're like, okay, we got to slow progression down because we've got 15% of our player base who's really impatient in endgame with nothing to do.
Right.
But like people like get to that point and they're like, people don't get to that point. People aren't at that point yet. They're not at endgame. And they're like, why are you slowing me down from getting where I want to go eventually? So you end up with like the split player base with people who are very happy that they ended up in endgame so fast, but now frustrated with nothing to do. And now you're slowing down the people who are trying to reach that end goal. And they can see that 15% at the end. So they're even more frustrated that they can't see where everybody's already at that conclusion.
Yeah, and then at the same time, you're trying to balance bringing in new people constantly, right?
Exactly.
So,
and like, the new people are attracted because they hear how fun it is. They come in, it's slow to progress. They're like, well, you lied to me about how fun this game was.
About? This game sucks, yeah. So.
Oh, well, I think that has been a pretty good discussion of where games are going in response to where the internet is going. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about what we've been playing lately. welcome back to the Avocado Games Cast. Now we're going to take some time to talk about what we have been playing lately. And I'm going to kick us off by talking about the game that I just finished this week called Viewfinder, that you might have heard of. Any of y'all heard of this?
I've heard of the toy. I don't know about the game.
I had seen you talk about it in the Gameological Discord server some.
Yeah, I have talked about it a little bit. And I used to have one of those Viewfinder toys as a kid. I think it was Sesame Street themed.
Yeah.
I think it had an Elmo or Big Bird in it. I don't know.
I was boring.
I never could get it to work properly.
I was like national parks. It was like pictures of like bison, like mountains and stuff. I was like, oh gee, thanks. I think somebody got it for me as like they went and visited like Yellowstone and got that for me. Very fun for a kid.
Yeah, kids just want to see Elmo. That's all kids want.
Exactly.
Distinct lack of Elmo in Viewfinder, the video game, though, which is a first-person puzzler, kind of like Superliminal or Maquette. And I'm making that comparison deliberately because the mechanics are similar to those games. So the main mechanic in this is you can either obtain or take photos of the world.
Okay.
And then when you place that photo in the world, it becomes part of that reality. So you can walk into the photo or grab stuff out of that photo.
Okay. Paper Mario had a kind of a mechanic like that, didn't it? Maybe I'm wrong.
Maybe?
You could like drag a area of the world, like a drawing of the world into the world. Maybe I don't know. There's been like
Kind of makes me think of like Scribblenauts.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit, except for like you don't have. Yeah, except for you don't have like that full level of creativity where you can imagine whatever you want and it appears in the world. So it is kind of in that spirit though.
Okay. Is it freeform or like preset? So like, can you take pictures of anything and like manipulate it to be part of the world, or is it like, go here, stand here, and then figure out this puzzle?
Depends from level to level. So in some levels, you'll be handed photos, and you have to figure out what to do with them. In some levels, you won't have a camera, but the camera will be fixed on a tripod in the level, and then you have to place stuff in front of that camera.
Okay.
And
like
take
build
the photos.
a scene. That's pretty cool. Okay.
Almost like build the scene and then place that scene elsewhere in the level to help you solve a puzzle. For instance, one thing you might need to do is say, you might need to make a scene where you have like an item that like a weight that'll weigh down a switch, and you need it to be placed on a bridge. So you might place like part of a piece of land that you could use as a bridge, and then place the weight on top of it. Take a photo of that, and then move that whole thing to elsewhere in the level where you would have the bridge with a weight on it.
Oh, that's really fucking clever. Okay, I see the Scribblenauts kind of too, like you were saying. That's really cool.
Yeah, just being able to like manifest things into the game to solve your
Yeah, and in other levels you'll actually have the camera, so you'll take pictures of various things in the level and then place them elsewhere.
That's always an interesting version of puzzle games that let you manipulate the environment like that instead of just trying to like look at the environment and figure it out.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a little bit almost like the original Portal, where you would place portals kind of wherever you wanted, and then use that to solve puzzles. So, like on paper, this is a super interesting game, and I think it's a game I like on the whole. But it never really gets beyond what I just described to you. Like I've pretty much told you everything you're going to see in the game. There's one little variation on the mechanic that I won't spoil that happens towards the end, and it's really, really cool. But if it takes you until 80% of the way for a game to become really, really cool, I feel like that's a bit of a missed opportunity.
Yeah, because that's what I was asking about. Like, if it's all on rails, I could see it kind of just being, okay, well, I stand in this spot and I have to figure it out. But I do like at least that it sometimes gets you a little free form with it.
Yeah, so it's free form, but it's not free form in a way that's ever really engaging or interesting. Like, the solutions are often really, really obvious, and it never really plays with them in a way that's clever. You just kind of figure out the mechanic. You're like, okay, I figured out this mechanic. And then, you kind of like, okay, I might have to string two different things together, and then that's kind of the solution. It never really makes you think too hard outside of the optional challenge levels, which are really, really tricky. But the optional challenge levels are also very much fun because they're very finicky. So, yeah, it's a game that I feel like I don't want to say it's a disappointment because a disappointment is a game that's both bad relative to your expectations and is also, in some sense, absolutely bad. This is a game that is bad relative to my expectations, but it's still like pretty good on the whole. So, yeah, it didn't meet my expectations, but yeah, not something I call a disappointment.
Okay.
The one part of this game that I'd call like just flat out bad, the writing is not good in this game. So it's a story about climate change, a very important issue that we should all care about. But spoiling it as little as I can, it's not really about that. Most of the story focuses on the characters and their dysfunctional interpersonal relationships. And then kind of reaches the end, and there's this bit of unearned hope that the story seemed to be very much hinting against, and then just kind of springs that hope out of nowhere. And it's like, you didn't earn this.
Yeah,
It's kind of a heavy.
feel good.
Yeah, it's kind of a heavy topic to just not really like be satisfying about, you know?
Yeah, like either let me wallow in
Yeah,
that cynicism or
exactly.
and hopelessness, or you kind of have to build up the possibility of hope from the outset in a way that is logically coherent, not just we foreshadowed it and therefore it happened.
Yeah.
Like you really have to build this up as part of the fiction, and that's not what happened. But overall, like I can give us a qualified recommendation. If you're into first-person puzzlers, I don't think you'll have a bad time with this. It doesn't overstay its welcome. It's a pretty fun game. Not like one of the greats. It's not a Portal. It's not I haven't played Talos Principle. It's not a Portal. It's not a Parallax. It's not a Manifold Garden. But it's pretty good.
So it's kind of like a puzzling experience that does something cool, but never really fulfills the promise, I guess.
Yeah, if you're fine with that, like this game had received a lot of hype pre-release, and I think it reviewed very well.
It's $25. Wow. That's in that you better be pushing AA territory for me.
Yeah, you got to be Stanley Parable level if
Yeah.
you're charging me $25.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe wait for a sale on that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I paid $33. I don't know what that is in Freedom Bucks.
Yeah.
But
How long
yeah.
was like the playtime on it?
I took 10 hours, but that's because I did all the optional challenge
Yeah.
stuff. And the optional challenge stuff, I'd estimate it was only like 6 or 7 levels, but those optional challenge levels were like 50-60% of my playtime.
Oh, okay. So like those are the
Those that get really tough. There's one that I spent, I think, 2 hours on.
jeez.
But that's because the solution was really obvious, and I didn't see it for like an hour and 45 minutes. And then once I saw it, I was just like, oh, God.
Oh,
I was
those
an
are
idiot
always
the whole
fun.
time. Yeah. Sometimes you're just not thinking about how you can exploit the mechanics in exactly the correct way. And this was just a way where I was thinking way too complicatedly. I was like trying to use photos to carve up platforms so I could jump onto another platform and then get onto another platform from there. And that was just bad ideas all around.
It's just too much movement. Yeah.
Yeah. This was not designed, like, I'll just give a hint. This game is not designed to be a first-person platformer, so don't treat it as such.
Yeah.
And you'll be fine.
I know what you mean though. Like sometimes like when the game is using like like the language of like, hey, you solve this puzzle and you get to the end, when it wants you to solve puzzle on top of puzzle on top of puzzle with movement, it gets really like, okay, like you're overwhelming me now, right?
Yeah, that was a problem Quantum Conundrum had.
Yeah, that's
that
why
was
people
Kim
hated
Swift's
it.
game.
Yeah.
After, like, I didn't hate that game. I was like mixed to positive on it, but I really feel that should have been a third-person game because like the platforming demands in that game were super
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah, and like people would get the puzzle right, but they literally couldn't make the jump. Like that's like two different skills. You know what I mean? That's asking a chef to be a farmer or whatever, right? Like great platforming and like puzzle games to me don't always have to be the same thing. So
Yeah, I made the mistake of playing that on mouse and keyboard, and
Oh,
I really
jeez.
should play it on controller.
Yeah.
Because like the power switching on a keyboard was not fun. But yeah,
I would get why you would probably. I mean, it's Portal. Well, the team that did Portal, so you'd probably assume it'd have some pretty good controls.
yeah,
But
same Yeah, same lead dev,
Yeah.
Kim Swift. I don't know what she's worked on lately. Should check that out. Blasto, what have you been playing?
The most recent game I rolled credits on was Pikmin 4.
Oh man,
Oh yeah,
already, huh?
Yeah,
I haven't even started that, and I bought that at release.
I'm still playing through. I'd say I'm about 2/3 of the way through it. There's a lot of like optional content, and I didn't realize that like a specific action was going to cause the game to be like, "Hey, it's over now. You can keep playing if you want, but it's over."
Oh wow.
And I
Is like a campaign or like a story that's continuous, or is just like a set number of like puzzles, I guess?
It is a story, and I'm actually not even sure how many areas there are yet. The menu kind of makes it look like there's a total of 6. So far, I've unlocked 5. So I mean, we'll see. That it seems like
Maybe one's DLC.
perhaps, yeah. I mean, it does seem like there might be one more I could unlock post game. It's a pretty substantial amount of content, and it kind of ranges.
Too, where I think they could probably get away with like, hey, here's not even DLC, but like a mission pack or something to play with.
Yeah. So I mean, it sounds like you guys are both pretty familiar with what Pikmin is. For anyone who's not familiar, who's listening, it's honestly a little hard to pin down, which I like just to describe in a sentence, which I think might be why it's like kind of always been in Nintendo's like B tier of games. It's never really crossed over into mainstream success because you can't really just tell your friend like in a sentence what it's about.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But yeah, I mean, it's like a kind of a puzzle platformer slash real-time strategy game, I guess, is a simple way of describing it. But it's just so it's a very chill game, despite it. You're like constantly battling these enemies and trying to make sure your Pikmin don't die. It just, I don't know. It just is a very chill time for me. It's very relaxing to just like collect stuff and kind of meander around those beautifully designed levels that they've made.
Yeah, I mean, my favorite version of Pikmin was Overlord. Honestly, I mean, like, I'm not saying anything bad about Pikmin, but I think that was like the only other game I think that even really mess within that genre, right? So it's pretty unique in a lot of ways. I don't think if you haven't experienced Pikmin or Overlord, you might not know the genre period.
My reference point is Darwinia.
Oh, really?
That's the only. Yeah, it's the only game in that genre I've played.
I've never played Overlord or Darwinia.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I only just started playing Pikmin within like since 3 Deluxe came to the Switch. I missed them on the GameCube, but
yeah, this will be my first Pikmin game. I'm actually really excited for it.
It's excellent. I've had so much fun with it, and like going back and trying to like play a bit more of Pikmin 3 and the first game, it's kind of hard to like leave behind some of the quality of life improvements that they've made at this point. Like Ochi just rules, because in the earlier games, like all but one type of Pikmin can't swim in water, so you're constantly having to navigate them around water, and you can only bust out your blue Pikmin to like do water stuff. But now with Ochi, like everybody can just ride on his back and he can swim you across water and stuff. And so that just doesn't have to be as much of like a constant thing that you have to worry about and manage, which makes it a lot easier to like have different groups of Pikmin handling multiple tasks. Like you don't have to babysit them as much, which I like a lot.
Ochi's the dog creature, right?
Yeah. He's delightful. But they don't like overdo it with him. But then there's like RPG elements to the dog where like the more people that you rescue from like I think they all get rescued in caves, if I'm not mistaken. Like every rescue I've made has been from a cave. But you rescue people who are like part of the rescue corps, and then also just like civilians who got lost on what is it, PN 404 is the name of the planet.
Yeah, PNF, I believe.
404. Yeah. Which is, they've alluded to in previous games, is basically like Earth in millions of years in the future where like humans aren't around anymore. And so we're just kind of like collecting the artifacts of this abandoned Earth. But anyway, as you save people, Ochi gets points. and you can use those to like increase his abilities. He can carry more stuff. He can eventually branch off on his own and control his own group of Pikmin independent from you, so you can kind of have two teams going at once. It's great. I've had a really, really good time with it.
Pikmin's one of those games where it's hard to explain, but you feel the most satisfied solving puzzles in Pikmin. Like, it feels like, like when it all clicks sometimes, and it's an area where it's just not about, getting from one side to another, but manipulating things and using the right things and getting by with it. I've always enjoyed that part of it. But yeah,
well, that's what Miyamoto has baked into all of his games. Is the player should feel smart for solving this puzzle. Not that doing it makes you smart, but it makes you feel smart that you did it.
Pikmin's very good for that.
And I think I'd say like Mario, Zelda, really all the big Nintendo franchises, like they do a really good job at teaching you through failure and repetition.
Yeah.
Less and less, they're a little less willing to do that these days. I will say the first couple hours of Pikmin were a little hand-holdy. They're just like, every time I found a new kind of Pikmin, I didn't need like a cutscene and to tell me what to do with it. Like, yeah, I get it. I found the yellow Pikmin. I can take down the electric fences now. Like, you don't have to give me a whole thing about it. But then again, I mean, these games are also supposed to be sold to like 5-year-olds. So I get it. It's a thing they have to balance. I just am personally very
If ESRB has their way, you better be 10 years old at least. Otherwise, you ain't touching Pikmin 4.
Wow.
Yeah, it says E10 Plus on my box.
That's fine. Well, so here it's like it would be probably E for everyone.
Yeah, I would assume an E, honestly.
It's surely not T for teen.
It's no, Canada and US use the same ratings.
If you do?
E10 Plus here, it's E10 Plus down there.
Very surprising. I would have assumed.
Wait, let me just double check my box.
Well, ours aren't by age. It's just like it's E for everyone, T for teen, M for mature, and then there's adults only, which those games don't get made.
Nobody makes them, yeah.
No. E10 Plus both exist now. They're two separate ratings.
It's like the PG-13 of video games.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're two separate ratings that exist in both places.
What is it? What is it rated not E for? Like, is there?
I mean, I guess it's like
or?
cartoonish violence.
Yeah, like basically all the stuff that used to get rated E but had any violence in it got bumped up to E10 Plus, and they got rid of EC, which is early child, and then a lot of that stuff became E, and a lot of the stuff that was E before but had like a very tiny bit of violence remained E.
I remember someone saying that EC was like educational or something. I remember someone saying it was getting like increasingly hard to get that. Like, because it wasn't easy to prove that your game was educational unless it was like straight up. I think this might have been in results with like Assassin's Creed had the like walk through Egypt mode. You know what I mean? They released it as a separate game, and it's supposed to teach you about life in Greece or life in Egypt or whatever. And they were saying they were having a real hard time classifying it as educational for some reason. And I just always remember that like they ended up having to get it. I think E10 or whatever it is because of like what you're saying. It's just apparently not easy to get that classified that way. I mean, think it was Assassin's Creed, but
no, they didn't have an educational classification. Or what you might be thinking of is EC.
Yeah,
which is early childhood.
That's what I mean. Like basically, no one was able to get EC when they thought they should. So.
Well, yeah, it was only for preschools. I don't think it would have been applied to Assassin's Creed. It would have applied to like. I don't know, Baby's First Cell Phone Simulator or something like that.
Well, this was not Assassin's Creed proper. This was the whatchamacallit, the tour through Egypt.
Yeah, we'll look into that for the link dump.
I might be wrong.
Yeah, it might have been they were trying to get like an everyone rating for it.
Yes, that's what I think it was. Yeah, because they wanted to teach it in schools, and like that was like the plan with it was like, hey, we made this mode where you can basically like teach kids about Egypt, but like a lot of schools had rules. It had to be E, and then they're like, it's almost impossible. Well, not E, but the EC, and apparently it was like almost impossible to get that rating. And like I think that's why they scrapped it for Valhalla. I'm not sure, but
might have been like an E10 Plus thing.
Yeah,
but no, E10 Plus got introduced in 2005. We'll look this up for the link dump. It's got to be something because there's never.
Probably wrong, but but
as it applies to Pikmin 4, I mean, to be fair, like within the first like minutes of the game, you know, some of your cute little Pikmin friends are dying because you're just hurtling them to their doom
oh jeez.
against, you know, a monster that's not. I mean, you can rewind time, which is what I did. You know, the first time you like lose a huge wave of Pikmin, but like you do kind of feel bad about it. They're like your cute little plant friends.
I don't feel bad. I'm feeding them right to that like snake monster, whatever's going to eat them up.
I will say there's a nice variety of difficulty throughout the game, and it kind of lets you either engage with it or not. Like some caves are really tough, and I mean you can just nope out of it at any point, and if you decide you want to come back, you can go back to any floor that you want. All the enemies you've defeated are still defeated, so you don't have to like redo a bunch of stuff that you already did or recollect anything. I really, really like that about the whole cave system in the game. It's there's just so much little quality of life stuff in it like that compared to 3, which I'm having a little bit of a harder time getting into now that I've played through 4.
Yeah, it's like now that I've proved I can do something, don't make me prove it again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I really appreciate.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention about Pikmin?
No, just on that note that you said, it feels like the game values my time, and I don't get that from a lot of video games these days, and I like that.
Yeah, it's very much appreciated when it comes to games, modern games especially. So Kappa, my understanding is that you've been messing around with mobile games.
Yeah, I've been getting enraged at mobile games. I was talking about this. It's driving me nuts. I don't play. I play mobile games so I get sick with them, right? Like I get sick of them, but this thing's been bothering me lately, and I don't know how many you've been playing or if you've been checking any new out, but there's this new thing that's kind of just broadly happening. So remember, kind of like I guess the evolution was like, hey, mobile games are $2-3 games. You know, they're just designed to have fun. They're match threes, whatever, right? And it slowly kind of progressed into like the Candy Crush, which is like, well, you can get little bonuses if you watch these ads, right? And then it sort of like devolved into, well, every 10 minutes you're going to have to watch an ad no matter what, but you can also, you know, watch these ads for bonuses. Now I've been playing 2 or 3 mobile games now where literally during the action, the meat of the game, you'll get an ad. And what they'll advertise for you is more or less, hey, you've got to, if you pay $5, you you block these annoying ads. You still need to watch the ads for the bonuses. And it's a very weird like thing that's going on right now, and it's mostly like these kind of like crappy Farmville type spin-off games. I think the one I've been playing is like Dreamdale. I think it's what it's called. And it like I saw
see
the
that
ad.
one advertised a lot.
Yeah, I did too. And I was like, oh, this looks kind of like a little bit like a fun farming game, you know, where you go around, right?
Yeah.
Almost like a not quite a Stardew Valley or
The actual
something
gameplay
like
though is never what the
Yeah.
ads show, which is
So
so infuriating.
that's what's kind of crazy about this one. This time, it kind of is. Like, you do go walk around and build your city up and unlock areas and stuff. That was kind of fun, but where they make up for it is, like, I'll literally be, like, chopping a tree and we'll get 2 chops in and then boom, ad. It is so frustrating. And the other thing I've noticed about mobile games, this is weird to me, right? So I'm playing this game. They advertise me another game that's similar, and I go, well, shit, maybe this doesn't have the annoying ads. So I download that game instead, and then I end up uninstalling Dreamdale, right, or whatever game I'm currently annoyed at, and it's just this like cycle of me like playing a game, checking out, getting annoyed, quitting it.
Yeah, I went through that with those idle clicker kind of games for a while. Like there's like an Adventure Capitalist and Adventure Communist, and there's several of them. That
Real
are
great gambit there.
And it's basically just like they turned a stopwatch into a video game somehow.
Yeah,
you're just watching a number go up. That's all, or making it go up.
Like I tried to explain this to my wife, who does enjoy idle games, right? And it used to be early idle games that I would remember would be like, hey, you log in, you get 10 billion coins, and you can make huge leaps and stuff, right? Now it's like they give you a lot less, and they want you to double what you got by watching the ad. You know what I mean? So your offline haul and I went and looked at reviews of Dreamdale, because this is not the only game that doesn't, trust me, right? I mean, there's a million games that do this, and literally every review that's like recent is like too many ads, too many ads. They force you into the paid no ad option. So many ads. I played for 10 minutes. Game was great. Then the ads started. Too many ads, and they're saying it's unprompted, random, coming up in the middle of you doing stuff, and it just drives you crazy, right? Um, it's it's weird. They and so you're not even paying to get rid of ads totally. You're paying to get rid of the annoying mid-game ads.
Yeah, that's
right?
how those idle games I was playing
Yes.
were. They were the exact same way. Like you still had to watch them if you wanted to get any kind of bonuses.
Right.
It was just they weren't serving them to you as you were trying to just play the damn game.
So like I'm sitting there like getting like old man ragey about this, and I was just imagining that like somewhere at like Dreamdale headquarters, there's a guy and his literal job is like, hey, how annoying do you think we can make this game before people quit?
I mean, people
Like,
have to be. I mean, I guess
Like
all
the VP in charge of irritation.
I mean, I guess all any game needs is like a few whales to keep going. But man, I'll tell you, as much as I hate to shill for them, Apple Arcade is the solution to all of those problems. Like, the fact that there's no ads, there's no in-app purchases, they're all just really good quality games.
I think they rolled something out similar with Android, but yeah,
they did. Yeah.
I mean, I've just gotten to the point where like I usually only play like kind of like wind down type games, usually like little puzzle games or little city building games or stuff like that. Yeah. And my previous annoyance with mobile games was like it would look like a nice little fun city game, and then 10 minutes and it's like join a guild and fight these battles against other real people, and if you go to sleep, you lose everything. Yeah, I don't know. I get very, very, very frustrated with ads, and I just move to the next game. And you're also advertising me the next game. I don't know.
Yeah.
Mobile is a shit hole of gaming for sure, but I just don't know. Like when we were talking about like the shitification of everything, I was like, how did mobile games even get finished?
Well, I mean, they kind of started there.
Yeah,
right?
but
they got there pretty fast. Let's be real.
But one curious trend I've noticed in those games, especially or at least with the idle ones, is that they all run these like week-long events where you can get like a bunch of extra stuff at the end of the event. If depending on how much you played, you get gems or whatever you can take back into the main game and make like a significant amount of progress at a time. And the weird thing is I was playing a few of these games at the same time that were made by completely different developers, but their events always started and ended at the exact same time. Like always at like 3:00 on the same day. I was just like, are they like coordinating this? Have developers just like of these games figured out like the ideal time to like start these things and the ideal amount of time to run them so that they make the maximum amount of profit? Like,
yeah, because like you can't make any real development because you're at work for 3/4 of the event, right? So like they know they give you just enough of a bone where you're like, wow, if I do this, then you're like, wow, I don't have enough time to do this. I better buy coin boosters. I better top up.
Yeah.
And then the last thing, this is weird. Like mobile game ads have gotten so sexual. It's almost like I almost think there needs to be like a rating board. I sound like a prude, but I'm not kidding. Like there was an ad that popped up and it was like it showed like a pretty girl holding a baby and it was like execute or like adopt. I was like, what the fuck?
Jesus.
What are these?
Oh
choices?
Yeah, I've seen that. I have seen that one. Yeah, it's really weird.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
That's some like King Solomon shit.
King something the game is like something. It's like make your choices, like King something, but like the ads are just so bizarre. And it's like your wife is like, I don't love you anymore, and it's like kill her, slap her. I'm like, neither of those are great.
What? What? No! What kind of world would you make those choices?
Have you seen the ads for Merge Mansion that have Pedro Pascal in them?
No.
It's like a live action thing. There's definitely no live action like FMVs in the actual game. But they hired Pedro Pascal for this like 30-second ad. He's definitely not in the actual game. The whole thing is just so weird that like they had it in their budget to hire Pedro Pascal, who can't come cheap even
Wow.
for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which mobile game hired Kate Upton all those years ago? I forget.
And then
Oh,
I
that
also
was
see a lot of
forever
them.
ago,
I
yeah.
see a bunch for a Royal Match where it's like some like C-tier celebrity who's like, you guys have got to check out this game. There's beautiful graphics. There's no ads and blah, 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 blah. But like it's still, Royal Match just it doesn't have ads, but it gates your progress, behind in-app purchases.
Yeah, so this game is called King's Choice. And there's a whole like line of these: Call Me Emperor, Game of Sultans, right? Throne of the Chosen, and they all kind of like have this like similar like build your waifu harem, and if they're not good, like beat them, or like choose the rightful heir, choose your adopted kids. Do you give your biological kid or them like the rewards? It is
Good Lord.
yeah, I know, like
But I guess a lot of those are being programmed like in just like wildly different cultures.
yeah, exactly. I think that's a
like
part
they're
of it.
cranking those out in China.
Yeah, exactly. But
Like, I don't begrudge anyone their enjoyment of whatever weird stuff they're into. But, like, I don't want to engage with this. This is not for me. This is not something I'm ever going to want to play. And, like, I thought we'd come such a long way from, remember Evany and Play Now,
Yeah.
Play Discreetly? But we're in the same muck that we were in 20 years ago.
and that's why when we were talking about like how everything's gotten shittier lately, I was like, I didn't think that mobile games could get worse. It's like, yeah,
I
they
saw
have.
some like Leisure Suit Larry shovelware in the eShop earlier today when I was browsing, and I was just like, it feels very weird to me that these games are on a Nintendo console.
Yeah, I agree. I actually,
Also, you can buy Night Trap on a Nintendo console now, so eat
Oh.
it, whoever that Nintendo of America president was that testified in Congress that it
Yeah.
would never be on a Nintendo console. Was it?
that was part of like the whole reason they found it like indecent, I think, because they said it would, if it wouldn't be on the big console, then it was like, smut, basically. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
it's
was,
the whole reason the ESRB was created. Basically, was Night Trap.
Yeah. I mean, I don't have a problem with adult gaming, right? But this is ads, and you have no idea who the person playing Dreamdale is, right? So I promise I'm not trying to be prudish. I'm just saying when you see these ads, it's not just like, it's not just your normal, like, cute, bouncy characters smiling at each other. Like, no, this is like clearly telling you, like, choose your harem. Like, beat those who don't belong.
Yeah, I see
Yeah,
the ads.
It's not so much that it's like the content is here and it's there if you're willing to engage with it. It's you are bombarding me with this content by like simple act of me browsing the web. I'm going to see these really gross ads that like display these really gross messages. Like, I don't want to see that browsing the web. Like, if I want to consent to seeing that on my own time by
absolutely.
buying the game and playing it, then yes, I'm in this gross harem simulator. But like browsing the web, like, come on,
Honestly,
screen your ads a little bit, people. Come
half
on.
the reason I pay for YouTube Premium is so I don't have to see stuff like that, because it's like YouTube was one of the last places where I was like still being bombarded with ads for stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because mostly when I do play mobile games now, I play on like stuff that's on Apple Arcade.
Now it's just me trying to enjoy chopping a couple trees before bed. This baby's
Like
terrible.
midway through your act swing,
I
give
had
us
to actually delete all the
$50.
idle clicker games from my phone because it was just like I was playing them so often throughout the day that it was like becoming unhealthy. I was just like, this is not fun anymore. Like, I'm stressing about the number in this game. Like, that's dumb. And since then, I've been playing a lot more on my Switch, which I like anyway. So
That's what I need to start. But like, I need to focus on, like, if I bring my Switch, I'm gonna start up Zelda, and I really need to not be playing that. I need to be playing, like, they still make that. What was that Mind Games thing that everybody loved for Wii? It was like a guy with
Brain
glasses.
Age?
Brain Age. I need to go
Big
find
Brain Academy,
Age.
I think is that's the one that's on Switch in North America. Brain Age was more of a DS thing. And they did a new Brain Age, but only in Japan and
Damn
Europe.
it! See,
They did not bring it out in North America.
Fuck, they want us to stay dumb. That's the conspiracy.
Well, I mean,
It's like
Big Brain
TikTok.
Academy is also, it's a very similar kind of game, and it's
Yeah.
also published by Nintendo.
Does it have the doctor guy in it still?
No, it's the Doctor Guy was Brain Age. Big Brain
Okay.
Academy is a little more cartoony.
Mhm.
And the one that's on Switch is kind of designed to be played multiplayer. So it's designed for you and someone else like in your house to kind of like go head to head.
Is that the one
smart.
where they got Neil Patrick Harris and David Burtka for the ads?
I don't know. I've not seen any ads for it. I did pick it up for $30 recently though, and have been playing it a little bit, and it's fine. It's not as good as the original Big Brain Academy for DS or the Brain
if I
Age
recall
games.
correctly, like my dad saw those ads, and I had to explain to him that the two men were married to each other. Like,
I just don't want to have a big fight with my wife by beating her in a video game before we go to sleep.
Yeah, one that's like about
That is
who's smarter
bullshit.
too is like, yeah, that's not a good way to go to bed.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's been part of what I've been playing. This
Blasto, have you been playing anything else?
Yeah, so a couple of things I've started recently. I'm trying really hard to get through it this time. Persona 5 Royal. I made it like 30 hours into the PS4 version. But
Oh, cool. So you're like 10% done.
yeah, basically. And
Well, closer to 20, but you know what I mean.
yeah. And I did really enjoy my time with it. I started to find the combat a little bit repetitive, although I think some of that was on me because I wasn't like engaging as deeply with the actual Persona system as I probably should have been. But going back through it now, I've been learning Japanese recently on Duolingo, and in an attempt to kind of like just expose myself to hearing the language as much as I can when I'm not actively learning it. I've been trying to like watch anime in the original Japanese voices, and where I can play video games with Japanese voice acting and English subtitles. So Persona 5 is great for that. The Japanese voice acting is fantastic. So I'm enjoying going back through that one again.
So is Royal? Is it a DLC? Is it a sequel? Is it an add-on? I only saw.
It's a deal.
It's kind of like a premium edition, like how they did Golden for
Okay.
Persona 4.
Yeah.
So there's some added content.
Got it.
And I don't think it was available separately as DLC at any point. Like they just released, they re-released the game with all this new content as Persona 5 Royal.
Because they changed some of the base mechanics a little bit, and they revised the dialogue. In the case of the English localization, they revised the script pretty heavily for Persona 5 Royal.
No more Delito saying blame God or yourself.
No, like, I think they took out some of the really clunky lines, like, "Are you hallucinating from an overdose?"
Sounds about right. I know. Merve, when you played this, what was your playtime like on this?
The original Persona 5? Because I didn't play
when
Royal.
you were originally through it was a long time.
It's like
I remember
100 hours
like-
to clear
Yeah.
it, right?
It was 125 hours,
Yeah.
I believe. So the story there was I started it when I was living in New York, and then I moved to LA and didn't finish it until like December. But the funny thing is, I accidentally left the disc in my PS4. It was as it was being moved across the country.
Oh no,
And somehow everything arrived in town.
Oh,
that's
wow.
crazy.
So I can recommend flat rate
Yeah.
movers to you.
Nice.
Yeah, I remember you playing it. And it was just like it felt like for like an entire year you were playing it.
Yeah, this was the second year of the podcast.
Yeah,
It was
and it
back
was
in
just like what are you
2017.
playing? Was just always Persona.
Persona 5
Whole
again.
year of Persona. Like finish
Like-
it.
I mean, I did
I-
a similar thing with Final Fantasy VII, which is now one of my, all-time favorites, like
Mhm.
many people. But I mean, it took me probably like 3 years and a couple of restarts, and in total, like 100 hours to finish that game. And that's part of the reason why I love it so much, is because it was like it consumed a lot of my life for a long time. But yeah, I hope I finally get there this time with Persona 5. By the
Yeah.
time I finish it, 6 will probably be out.
Yeah, it's weird that they haven't announced it yet. They announced 3 Reload. They announced that Persona 5 Tactics game. They even announced that new fantasy game Metaphor ReFantazio, yet somehow no news on Persona 6 yet, which
I'm
is
sure it's
really
going to take.
strange.
I mean, game development cycles are just so long now. You know, it's like 10
Yeah,
years
absolutely.
to.
I feel like those particular, there's so much like voice acting and stuff like that. It's probably very, very, very tough to do that.
And to localize and translate it into, they're so popular. It's like
Mhm.
got to be what, a dozen or more languages.
And when it's that cinematic and like character driven and stuff, you got to get it right. You can't just, like close enough type, um, voice acting. You got to be good.
Yeah, I don't think they want a repeat of what happened with Persona 5, where the localization was very heavily panned
Mhm.
initially. I think they're going to take their time with this one to make sure that it's right across the board. And I think they'll probably even want to do a simultaneous global release for this. That's the direction in which Sega's moving.
Yeah, and I mean, 5 made I would say the series like really break through in with Western audiences in a way that it hadn't before.
Yeah.
It was sort of like their Elden Ring, where like just finally it really broke through to, it felt like kind of the masses. So yeah, I would say you're probably spot on with that.
Mm.
Yeah, very funny that like we got the masses interested in a 100-hour pretty hardcore dungeon crawling RPG, but
Yeah.
here we are. Uh, Kappa, my understanding is that you have also been messing around with Baldur's
Yeah.
Gate 3 Early
So
Access.
yeah, don't worry.
And may or may not have been fornicating
No,
with members of the
I
Ursine
didn't
genus.
do it yet, but um, this is actually, I think, about as spoiler free as you can, because I've been in this like loop with Baldur's Gate where like I'm literally basically playing the intro mission over and over and over again, trying to get a feel for like the classes, the combinations. There's a lot going on in this one. Larian really likes to develop a character, even a custom character backstory, and they've got some real cool ideas going on. I don't know how much time you spent looking into what's going on with like the Baldur's Gate, just like initial character creation, beginning type stuff, right? But you can basically make your own character like you always could, right? You can choose to play the game as one of the pre-made companions, right? I don't know if any RPG's ever done that before, right? That's
No, I don't think
kind
so.
of big to me, right? So like if you want to basically experience the game from, I don't know, Cassandra's perspective in Dragon Age, or um, Grunt in Mass Effect, you can basically not play as the Shepherd or the Inquisitor. You play as the companion. Unique dialogues, unique missions, unique campaign stuff. That's, I think, is really cool. I want to really dive into some of those, right?
That is super interesting.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that in a game.
I think Jade Empire is the only game I can think of that kind of came close, but then you didn't have a create your own character option. You just had 7 characters
Right,
to choose
right.
from.
I mean, no, I guess Octopath Traveler kinda,
Yeah.
but
So-
where no
so-
one is technically the main character, but they all are.
The thing that they throw on top of it that I think is the coolest is they have this thing called the Dark Urge, right? So it's a custom character that you create, but as you play, you get unique dialogue, basically inciting you towards doing evil shit. And like the choices you make as the Dark Urge influence not just your character, but your party and the ending. And they
Sounds
haven't.
very Disco Elysium.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where they got this from, right? Because it's not just a straightforward like Paragon Renegade, light dark type thing. It's like the game is actively like, you can do this evil thing, right? And the example they give is like there's a scenario where like a teammate might be reaching a hand through the portal, and your character dives to save them, and then the Dark Urge voice is like, chop his hand off. Like it's almost like what intrusive thoughts, I guess, but like the game wants to see if you'll give into it. Like, are there going to be rewards? Does it change the story? Are there plans? Like things like that. And they haven't allowed it to be played, as far as I know, in early access, right? So I gotta think that's gonna be my first playthrough and see kind of how I come out the other side of it. Kind of want to do like a paladin, like a pure character, and see how much the game can pull me towards that, right? And there's even like, if you're a paladin and you give in, there's something called like Oathbreaker. Like your new alignment is Oathbreaker, and you get unique abilities and dialogue for being an Oathbreaker, right? and it can actually like change not just like your in-game alignment chart or whatever, right? It changes like how people react to you because they know like what you've done basically. That is
Yeah, you had that oath and then broken
yes,
it.
that is very cool to me. So the promise of just like the first 15 minutes of the game is amazing. This game is going to be all anybody's talking about in a month. I have that feeling. It's got that level of like craziness RPG to it. I don't know if it's going to be popular like with streamers and stuff like that. I don't know about that feeling because it's still your typical, top-down CRPG, not a ton to look at type game. But there's like dice rolls in it. Like, you go to inspect something and it says, okay, this is an int check. Roll the dice, and there's a physical dice you can click. Um, it's against mind flayers, which I think are a uniquely cool enemy, just like in the way they look and what they do and stuff like that. And I think that it's got enough of the Larian comedy, at least even as far as I've played, that this is spoilers for literally the first 5 minutes of the game. I've got a companion that's a walking brain. It's like a brain that I pull out of somebody's head, and it grows legs and it follows me around. It's like a dog, but a brain, and it talks to me in my head. So
It's awesome.
yeah, there is a lot going on here, and I didn't want to get too far down the path because it's early access and the saves aren't going to carry over, you know. But
Boo.
yeah, I know. So I can see myself maybe this week, maybe getting a little bit outside of the tutorial zone and getting a feel for maybe like the first town area. You know what I mean? And then kind of playing off of what I want my first character to be, because I know it's going to be that dark urge, But I'm really liking the idea of like a fallen paladin, or like, can I resist, some of the options, that they throw at me, which might promise more rewards, but maybe it screws up the game in a way, because I like
Yeah.
I like games that toe that gray line. Hey, we're trying to save the world. I don't know if it's worth it to go try to save this one guy or this one village or this one city. Sometimes choices got to get made. In fact, if they can do that in a really compelling companion-based RPG, man, I am going to be in heaven.
That sounds interesting. I honestly, I have not kept up with what's going on with Baldur's Gate 3. I did play Baldur's Gate 2 like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It was the PlayStation 2 version though. I was not a PC gamer at that time. I'd imagine this will be something to play on a
Yeah,
PC.
the feeling I get is far more this is from the Divinity line than it is the Baldur's Gate line, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't getting a lot of callbacks yet to 1 and 2. I think it takes place like 200 years after the original, or after Baldur's Gate 2.
Oh, yeah.
But technically, it's only 10 years after the death of the main character of Baldur's Gate 2, because he lives super long, because he's the the avatar of the god of murder, basically. And depending on how you play that game, it's a full 200 years after Baldur's Gate 2. So I know there's going to be little throwbacks and connections and stuff like that. I think they've advertised a couple of the companions. I know Minsk is going to be, and I'm not a big Minsk fan. I feel he's almost too jokey. And I know people like the space hamster Boo and all that, but like, I don't know, man. Even as like a 20-year-old younger person, I'm like, this is kind of
Now that is going to be launching day and date on PS5, right?
No,
No?
I think it's 2 weeks later.
Okay.
Maybe a week or 2 weeks later on PS5.
But it's not currently slated to come to Xbox at all, is it?
I don't know. I mean,
No. What's going on there is they want to bring it to Xbox, but they need feature parity between the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X versions.
Yeah.
They're having trouble getting co-op working on the Series S.
That makes sense. I got rid of my Series S. I had both for a time and was like, I don't need 2 Xboxes, and the X is obviously the one to keep. So.
Yeah, I have the 2 right now, and the X is the one I game on. The S is basically a Netflix box downstairs. So
yeah, and I got plenty of those. So
I think that there's going to be a pretty healthy modding community. So I think if you've got an option, with PC, that probably is going to be a better way to go. But
yeah,
the other thing about
Fallout mods came to PS4.
Eventually, yeah. It's hard to say though. I mean, like, even little things, I think Larian does a really good job with console optimization. Divinity 2 was very playable on console, so I don't think you'll have any issues at all with it on PS5. It's
I mean,
just
I don't have a gaming PC, so it's
Yeah.
basically the only way I can play it,
Yeah.
unless it comes to Mac, which I doubt it. So.
I know. I think it's
No, they're not going to do the Whoopi Goldberg.
yeah. Oh yeah, she refunded. What was it? Was it Diablo?
It's Diablo 4.
Yeah, and like people are like, it's kind of sweet, but like, what were you thinking?
Hey, I mean, those M1 and M2 chips can get the job done.
They definitely can run it. I just think it's more of like, the effort is not there yet.
Yeah, the audience is not
Yeah.
there, unfortunately.
I do think that one of the cool like features that I've been seeing more and more, and I actually did this. I bought this game on GOG rather than Steam. It's for sale everywhere, but what they did this time is basically if you pre-order, they gave you the digital deluxe. So if you're kind of like 50-50 on it and you think you're going to pre-order it, you're basically saving yourself $20 or $30 by getting it pre-ordered instead of just waiting for it to come out. It's gonna get good reviews and stuff like that. And it's been in early access that I feel like pre-ordering this game is not as chancy as it is for other games. It's been in early access for 2 years.
I was really pissed about the no early access games stipulation in our fantasy critic league, by the way, Merve. Because I was so gonna add Baldur's Gate 3. It was on my list.
Yeah,
No, the stipulation is that you can't select a game that is releasing into early access, but you can select a game if it comes out of early access into full release.
Gotcha.
I think there's some.
So you just scammed yourself out of a game, buddy.
Oh wow! So I there would have been a window where I could have added it.
Yep.
I think. Go ahead.
Well, it actually told me, I didn't realize it was in early access, but the reason it gave me for not being able to add it wasn't that it was in early access, it was that reviews had already been published.
Oh, yeah. That's, like, if ever there's, like, critic reviews out, even if it's for an early access game, that automatically disqualifies it. It's
Gotcha.
not the greatest system.
Yeah.
If it's the second open critic gives reviews, then yeah. Anyway, that's Fantasy Critic for y'all. FantasyCritic.games. Check it out. Make your own Fantasy Critic League.
Merve is currently destroying all of us, by the way.
That's right. I know those indies that get the good reviews. I'm in with the gaming hipsters. I know how we roll. Anything else you'd like to tell us about Baldur's Gate?
Yeah, I think, I normally don't buy early access, but I think this one was, one, it's close enough to launch, and you kind of know what you're getting on this one. But I think this was really an interesting development cycle because I don't know. This wasn't ever really early access, like we're going to give you the whole what we have ready for the game. It always kind of felt like they were giving it to you almost in chapters or like sections or characters at a time, right? I didn't follow because I didn't want to get spoiled on anything, but I didn't follow it too closely. But it felt like the early access was really more designed to be like almost like a QA thing rather than like, hey, we're making the game and looking for money at the same time.
More of an open beta than a...
Like a long-term open beta where you could really see the game move over time. Like I think a lot of like the early reviews, I don't know that I agree if with somebody reviewing an out of the gate early access game and saying there's not enough here, you know what I mean? Like you're paying $60 for early access, but you're kind of but you can slowly start to see the game go towards like 2 and 3 stars on GOG to 4 and 5 stars as the development kind of runs through. You know what I mean?
I think Fortnite's still technically in early access, which is how they get away with like you don't have to pay for PlayStation Plus to play it online.
I think there is definitely some type of loophole there, But one thing I really liked about one of the reasons I don't know why I bought it on GOG, but one of the things I liked about their reviews is they've finally done on GOG where it says they have a rating and a verified owner rating. And I love that little filter, and they've got a after release, a during development review as well. So it really helps to kind of filter through some of the 1 stars. This isn't Baldur's Gate because, I can't do this thing, right? But eventually seeing the things get moved on to, it's kind of interesting. I do think what people are going to be upset about is going to be, this is too much Divinity, not enough Baldur's Gate. But it really depends what your feelings and memories were of Baldur's Gate as a series. Was it more of a story, or was it more of a gameplay thing? I think.
And if you can get both, all the better.
Yeah,
right?
I think it's going to be a good one. I think it's going to be a really, really good one.
All right, so that is Baldur's Gate 3. To close out, let me talk about 2 games that I have been playing lately. The first is a game that I've been playing on Switch. In fact, it's only out for Switch right now, called Master Detective Archives Raincode. So this is the new game from the creative team that made Danganronpa. So it's Kazutaka Kodaka, the writer, Masafumi Takada, the composer, and Ruiko Matsuzaki, the artist. I was going for those last 2 names off of memory, so if I screwed them up, I'm sorry.
I still can't get Danganronpa right.
I was about to say.
Danganronpa, I believe, is Japanese for truth bullet. I don't actually know Japanese.
We've talked about that game a lot on this podcast, and I'm still like, ding, gang, raw.
Also, I've been
Yeah.
actively practicing Japanese for the last 2 weeks on Duolingo, and your pronunciation is better than mine.
I had a Japanese person living in my house right here, and he would.
Danganronpa.
I'm like, "What's this word?" And she would just kind of look at him like, "Hmm." And then she'd say it, and I'm like, "Okay, keep saying it until I understand what you're saying." Danganronpa.
Danganronpa.
It was not.
One of my friends used to call it "Dang it, Grandpa."
Yeah. But
That's what it
I'm
looks like.
proud of your pronunciation, Merve.
My dadgum grandpa.
Yeah, Danganronpa. Yeah, I can't actually speak Japanese. But so, for those who don't know, Danganronpa is this visual novel / mystery game set in a high school battle royale kind of scenario. So instead of a psychopop take on battle royale like Danganronpa is, Raincode is a camp take on Gothic noir, which sounds like it would be really disastrous.
Yeah.
But I think what it actually succeeds at really, really well is doing that camp take on Gothic noir and mystery.
Now, we've talked a lot about humor being hard to pull off in video games, but man, camp, that is extremely tough.
Yeah, it's it doesn't work for everyone. I'd say a lot of the audience, I shouldn't say the audience, a lot of reviewers did not vibe well with it, and part of the audience, I think, also did not vibe that much with it. This is a little bit of a difficult thing to talk about. When it comes to games from outside the West, and it doesn't only apply to Japanese games, it also applies to games from China, Korea, Southeast Asia. When you talk about those games, and there's an element that's problematic, and there are problematic elements to this game, don't get me wrong, or there's an element that's a little bit off kilter or very weird. In this game, there is a lot of that camp that is potentially they're going to sex things up because they are going for that camp vibe.
Right.
And some people talk about it as if the developers didn't know that that's what they were doing. Oh, the Japanese just can't help themselves, and not oh no, they're intentionally trying to make a campy game.
Yeah.
And I find that a little weird, a little bit problematic in and of itself. Not to just think of Japanese developers as so naive they don't understand what they're making.
Help themselves. It's ingrained or
100% they can.
Yeah.
Tokimeki Memorial, probably one of the more, I guess now kind of known dating sim games from Japan. It was certainly one of them the original big ones. You don't so much as kiss any of the girls that you're trying to date in those games. It's very non-sexual.
Very chaste.
Yeah.
That's how most dating sims actually are. So this game is intentionally trying to be campy, and so much so that you have a companion character that is mocking pretty much everything you're doing the whole time. And some people find this grating, but I think it works for the tone that this game is going for. So stylistically, very campy. But also has those gothic noir elements, especially in the architecture of this city where it's set. The premise that it's set in a city called Kanai Ward, where it's constantly raining 24/7.
So Seattle.
Never stops raining. It's always dark out. So you've got this mixture of like European Gothic architecture with like these really cyberpunky neon lights. So it's like, if you remember the version of Prague you had in Deus Ex Mankind Divided, it's like that at night all the time, except for instead of like that red and gold color schemes, for like purples and blues and like neon yellows.
Cool.
It's really neat.
I'm getting like Blade Runner is what I see in my head when you think that.
Yeah, it's like Blade Runner-y mixed with like European Gothic.
Okay.
It's really cool. So I think from that perspective, they've done something really cool. Like the Danganronpa series, it's a mystery game. And like the Danganronpa series, you gather evidence and then you go to a trial phase after gathering all the evidence. But instead of a trial phase like they have in Danganronpa, you go into a kind of mental reconstruction of the mystery called the Mystery Labyrinth that you walk through, and it's that you walk through and play mini games to kind of get at the mystery.
Sounds very Ghost Trick.
Yeah, it is a little Ghost Trick, except for you cannot technically have new information introduced to you in the Mystery Labyrinth, because the Mystery Labyrinth is constructed from all the information you have at the time of that the Mystery Labyrinth is open.
So it's like a Ghost Trick,
So
Phoenix Wright hybrid.
yeah, it's a little bit more like, but in Phoenix Wright, like new information can be introduced from like other characters. You're not like interacting with other characters in the real world. You're interacting with your mental reconstruction of those characters, so they can't tell you anything you don't already know. And that's kind of one of the drawbacks of this approach. Like, as much as I enjoy the premise here and going into these mystery labyrinths, because you can only go in with information you already know, you cannot be surprised in there. And so sometimes the mysteries are a little obvious. before you
Cyberpunk
even get to the mystery
2077 did a
phase.
very similar thing. Sorry, I did.
Yeah, like the brain dance segments.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking of.
Yeah, so it's kind of like that you're jumping in with information you already have. Like, there's one mystery, like, I will admit I didn't solve most of the mysteries before going in, but the mystery in Chapter 3 of this game, I knew it, like, almost 100% before I'd even stepped into the mystery lab. It was super duper obvious. And that was a shame, because part of what made Danganronpa so fun was its shocking twists. This game has a lot fewer shocking twists. It's not like trying to like take you for a ride in the same way Danganronpa is, and that's understandable. This is a lot less of a lurid game. They couldn't have made a game as lurid and as shocking after they made Danganronpa V3. I don't know how much I can spoil about Danganronpa V3 on this episode, so let's just say Danganronpa V3 is very meta and is very critical of the audience's penchant for liking very lurid, very edgy things. And so if they were to go then produce a game that was very lurid and very edgy, it would be extremely hypocritical. So they kind of had to back off on those elements, but it also makes the game a little less interesting in a way. So I guess I am the target of critique of Danganronpa V3. But yeah, world design and vibes are impeccable. If you like that, I think you'll like what's here. But if you want really twisty mysteries, you're not going to find that here, unfortunately.
So is the goal of this to continue the series, or you be like an alternate life for the characters, I guess?
I don't know, because I haven't finished the game yet. My understanding is that there's like a tiny bit of a sequel hook in there, but not very much. Like, they could end it here and it would be satisfying, but they could also do a sequel with... I mean, I haven't played the game. I don't know what the sequel would look like.
Like an anthology setup.
That's what I thought. I was
Master
wondering, too.
Detective Archives is like the framing for it, and then there could be another one that's like whole complete different cast of characters and what have you. But it's same
That's what
kind of
I'd actually
gameplay.
hope for, because I hate most of these characters. Like the characters in Danganronpa, when they were annoying, it was kind of fun because you couldn't wait for them to die, and you knew that most of them would die. Master Detective Archives, the characters are annoying, and you kind of know you're stuck with them. So, like, I'm not having the best of time interacting with other people, having a good time exploring the world, interacting with a few characters that do like, and some of the mysteries are generally well written, and that part I'm enjoying.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm mixed on this so far. It's definitely not Game of the Year material. It was my most anticipated Game of the Year, so I'm a little disappointed. But
There was another one of these you were
we'll
kind
see
of
where it goes.
disappointed in. Was it the one before this, or was it? I remember.
It yes, it was. So in between, so let's back up a bit. Kazutaka Kodaka used to work for Spike Chunsoft, and so Danganronpa games were developed kind of internally at Spike Chunsoft. Then he went off and formed his own studio called Tukyo Games. And for a while, they just did a bunch of experiments, and one of those experiments was an FMV game called Death Come True, and that game is just bad.
Okay.
It's like it gains nothing from being a choose your own adventure game, and probably could have just been a movie, and that would have been a lot better. So I did not enjoy that, but I am enjoying this a lot more than Death Come True.
Okay. So your goal has always been with these series of like, are you following the characters, or are you? I mean, I guess.
Like
Go ahead.
I'm in it for the mystery.
Got it, okay.
Right? I'm in it for like the mystery and the twisty plotting and like the fun vibes of it all. I'm not really like there to bond with the characters, and that wasn't the case really with Danganronpa. Danganronpa is, like Blasto alluded to, more of an anthology. They're all ultimately linked, but when you play Danganronpa V3, you are not going to see immediately how it's linked to Danganronpa's 1 and 2. Danganronpa 2 is a little bit more obviously linked to Danganronpa 1 from the outset, but I'm not going to spoil what I mean by that. They're really like an anthology. So that was Master Detective Archives Raincoat. And finally, the game that I'd like to conclude by talking about is a brief, and by brief I mean like around 45-minute, 8-bit style narrative adventure called He Fucked the Girl Out of Me. So this came out last year on itch.io and just came to Steam very recently. It's a free game, although you can choose to support the dev by paying for like I think wallpaper DLC or something like that. Also has an unofficial Game Boy Color version. I mean, like it's an official version of the game, but like unofficially for Game Boy Color. So if you want, you can buy that.
Like is it like the cartridge, or is it like a?
You can like buy the file that you would load to a
Okay,
Game Boy
okay.
Color
I
cartridge.
remember like a while back there was somebody who made a cartridge, Game Boy cartridge. Remember, and it was like handcrafted
for like River City
It was
Rampage,
something like that.
something
It
like
took
that.
him like 6 months to do it right. Okay, anyway, I started to derail, but
Yeah,
I was-
manufacturing those at scale would be.
that's what I was thinking. I was like, whoa, that's
Yeah.
huge
So,
for
so
a
they sell you the
company.
ROM. That rules.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, they gave you a ROM that you can load to a cartridge and like plug into an actual Game Boy. So this is a story about a trans woman attending university in Florida, and this takes place before the Affordable Care Act was instituted in the United States. And what that meant for a lot of trans people is that under a lot of insurance regimes, transgenderism was considered a pre-existing condition, so you couldn't get covered for it. And you couldn't get insurance payments for transitioning. So you couldn't get, like, for regular hormone therapy, you couldn't get payments for that. You have to pay for that entirely out of pocket. So what the main character does is she turns to sex work to fund her transition. And this story follows what happens to her as she goes through life as a sex worker and her sentiments over the course of its journey. It's a very heavy story, so if you're not up for it, like, just steer clear. But if you're willing to experience a story about these topics, it is an absolutely fantastic, very moving ride. So
Is this
if you're up for it, definitely check it
is
out.
this at all based on Dog Day Afternoon?
I don't think
Okay.
so. Maybe I'd have to. I don't know if it's by the
So
same
you did,
dev.
no Dog Day Afternoon, famous movie. It's early Al Pacino, John Cazale. They rob a bank in order to pay for the reassignment surgery. I was just wondering if that was maybe like part of the background or part of the inspiration for it. That was
No, I
inspired
think this is
by
the
a real
developer's
story.
personal experience.
Oh,
Yeah, it's
okay.
semi-autobiographical. Yeah.
Yeah, this has been on my radar. I saw because when it just hit Steam this past week, like Polygon had an article about it, and I read about it somewhere else too. But yeah, it's very much on my radar. I don't know. It looks like the itch.io game can just be version can just be played like in browser. So that's probably how I'll experience it. I don't know if the Steam version is on Mac, but yeah, I'm very interested in playing that game.
Yeah, it was a really fantastic and phenomenal experience. Definitely one of the most moving things I've played this year. So check it out if you are up for it. Anything else you folks been playing lately?
Oh, same old. There's
All right.
I started Oracle of Seasons on Nintendo Switch Online last night.
Oh yeah, because that's there now. They got Ages and Seasons up
They
there.
did, yeah. I've been enjoying it. I haven't played those games in like probably 20 years, but it's reminding me of the limitations of the Game Boy Color. Like that color palette there's not much to it. I would really love to see those games get the Link's Awakening full-blown remake treatment. Because Capcom was clearly inspired by Link's Awakening, like having recently replayed through that via the remake, and now playing Seasons. It's very very similar to Link's Awakening, just in the way that they tell the story and the way that they kind of casually guide the player in the right direction. Like it is masterful game design, in my humble opinion.
That's awesome. I've always wanted to kind of check out the older Zeldas. Because I'm about to say something blasphemous. I didn't vibe with Breath of the Wild, and I kind of ended up putting it down. But I kind of want to see where the lineage of that series came from, so I'm definitely interested in checking out some of the older
do you
games.
like Zelda style games like Darksiders or anything like that, or is it more just Zelda itself or the gameplay?
Like I never played Darksiders.
Okay.
It's like it's hard for me to tell because I don't know what a Zelda style game is outside of
Open world
like,
roaming,
Breath of the Wild.
unlocking.
Oh, so Breath of the
items
Wild
and
is your
things.
only Zelda?
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild is my only Zelda,
Okay, wow.
which is probably not the best place to
Yeah,
start.
No,
that's-
definitely not.
I kind of feel like
Yeah,
Breath
some-
of the Wild, after its kind of like first initial push, it did kind of cool, even among Zelda fans. Just a little bit. I think there was a lot of. It is annoying to have your weapons break and a lot of the other little things with it. I think that the new one does fix a lot of that, at least in their minds. I think it's not as dependent on weapons and items and stuff like that. It sounds like.
I loved both
Yeah,
of those
like
games.
it still has weapon durability,
Yeah,
but
you don't.
there's a whole bunch of stuff to work around
Right.
it now.
I loved Breath of the Wild, and I like slurped down Tears of the Kingdom over the course of like a week with a milkshake straw. Like that game was just I loved it so much. But I definitely understand why it wouldn't be some people's vibe, and it's definitely not representative of the series as a whole. I think it's where the series is going moving forward. But definitely check out Link's Awakening. I would recommend the remake on Nintendo Switch versus like the original Game Boy version, but it is just like the opening hours of that game are a masterclass in game design and guiding the player without holding their hand too much and just giving the right amount of hints to like nudge you in the perfect right direction, and also in the way the level is designed to make you go the way you're supposed to. It's so good. Just a perfect game, I think.
Yeah, and if you really start to get into Zelda, you start to realize how wild like the chronology of Zelda is. It's very complicated and like kind of like a Dark Tower type series where there's like this like constant like trying to defeat the bad guy type thing that goes on and on and on. But I mean, Ocarina of Time, I feel like it's the safe answer as a place to start, but I think it's still a great place to start if you don't want to get into the 2D ones. But
as someone who didn't play Ocarina when it came out and has zero nostalgia for it, I have a hard time with both of the 64 games. Like the older 2D ones, well, I mean, particularly Link to the Past and Link's Awakening, like those I'm a little bit more forgiving of because they're 2D.
Was it the open world roaming type stuff?
For me, it's just like the mechanics of controlling, like 64. The 64 controller sucked.
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah.
There's not a way to translate that to modern game controls in a way that doesn't also kind of suck.
Yeah.
And so I feel like having to use like basically the C stick and having very limited camera movement and stuff just really makes me not have a good time with those games. And Wind Waker is where it got to like, okay, I'm on board now for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think Wind Waker would be my good jumping on point to try to get into Zelda.
If they put it out on the damn Switch.
Which, yeah, that's the problem. I don't own a Wii U. I was going to say unfortunately, but I don't know what else I'd play on the Wii U other than Xenoblade X.
I've honestly been tempted to buy one lately just so I can play the Wind Waker HD remaster. Like, which is ridiculous, and so I'm not going to actually do it, but damn it, I wish they would just put that out on Switch.
Absolutely. All right, I think it's time to call this episode to a close. If you would like to keep up to date with the podcast, you can follow us on our website at avocadogamescast.wordpress.com. On that website, we post each episode along with a wink chat. Wink chat. What am I saying? Wink chat. I don't even know how I got from link dump to wink chat. Wink chat isn't even a word.
It is now.
Okay, Wink Chat. That's the episode of the title, Wink Chat. So on that website, we post each episode along with a link dump that fact checks a lot of what we say. You can also subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. All you have to do is search for Avocado Gamescast. We'll appear in the search results because no one else has stolen the name Avocado Gamescast despite our repeated failure to trademark this.
At some point, it just becomes ours by default, right? Is that how it works?
I don't know how like my mom was trained as a trademark lawyer. I mean, she hasn't practiced for years, but I could ask like, Mom, how does my podcast legality work?
Just wait till somebody
She'd be like,
it.
Son, you're running a podcast? What the hell have you been doing with your life? She doesn't know about this. And just make sure you check out The Avocado at the-avocado.org. They're a wonderful community of people who talk about not just video games, also books, movies, politics, and sometimes what they had for dinner.
What did we have for dinner?
What did I have for dinner? You know, I did like the whole when you're a bachelor, there are two things you can do, right? There's or three things you can do. There's I'm gonna order delivery, which adds up in cost pretty fast.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's.
Yeah. Then the second thing you can do is, I'm just gonna eat ramen or whatever garbage is lying around. And the third thing you can do is if you actually cook for yourself on occasion, like I do. I bought a bunch of ingredients and I have a whole bunch of leftover ingredients, and a bunch of them are gonna go bad. And I need to use these because I don't like wasting food. Because the image of my mom is in the back of my head being like, son, don't ever waste food. You know, when I was growing up in India, we didn't have that much and we couldn't waste the food. So you'd better not waste food here in Canada in the land of plenty, right? So I got that image in the back of my head. I'm like, oh, I got to use my ingredients. So I'm just mixing together rice and cheese. I had this old bit of tomatillo salsa, and I had these chicken strips that I used for sandwiches that were going to expire.
Casserole surprise.
I had some cheese.
Oh man.
Yeah. So it's just everything microwaved together. I boiled the rice, and then I have some vegetables. I chop it up, throw it in there. I have an old chili. I chop that up, throw it in there. And
So bachelor
because
chow.
there's enough like
It's
salt and
bachelor
flavor
chow
in there.
from Futurama. Is-
Yeah. It's like bachelor chow, but it ended up tasting pretty good because like you put enough salt and spices in anything, it ends up tasting pretty good.
Yeah.
So that was what I had for dinner. It was like chicken strips in rice with salsa and cheese and vegetables.
I had hot dogs, except I called them glizzies because it makes my kids laugh when I use
Glizzies?
the youth
What's the origin
youth
of that?
slang. It's a guy. I think he's in
Youth
a
slang?
trailer park, and he. Have you ever heard of stomach breathing? So like
For the purpose, yeah. So he like
inhales.
Like,
Yeah. So like he inhales a hot dog into his stomach and then like pushes it back up. And it's I don't know why, but the term caught on with the youth to start calling hot dogs glizzies because he calls himself the glizzy gobbler. So, whenever I say like old man
I feel
says
really old.
new person slang,
Yeah,
my
like-
kids love it, but I like it's just like a guy like
you're eating those PogChamp
Yeah,
glizzies for dinner. No Kappa, it's
I got
PogChamp
it.
glizzies for dinner.
My wife made some hot dogs. So, oh, glizzies tonight. And my kids laugh for like 20 minutes. You know, that's all it takes. So, just show your hip with the youth.
Oh. Man, I am so out of it with Zoomer slang. I like the Zoomers would call me a boomer.
They call
Like,
everyone
straight
a
up.
boomer. They have no concept of when the actual, like boomers lived. But yeah,
I remember like TAing a class and I was like TAing to students who were literally like 4 years younger than me. I mentioned the East Asian financial crisis, and like they had never heard of this. And then I was like, oh yeah, you were 2 at the time. Of course you have no concept of what happened in 1997. So like even like that small age gap, you start to feel the
Right.
gulf. It just
especially,
only grows
yeah.
over time.
I trust me. I game with nothing but like 20-year-olds, and they'll say stuff to me. I'm like, oh my god, you guys have no idea. Like, you can't be their parent. Though. You gotta let them find out the same way you did. But
People who were born when I graduated high school have now themselves since graduated high school.
yeah, I know
So
they're having
that's-
kids.
that's-
Oh
Yeah,
god.
that's where I'm at.
I feel like I became an old man almost instantly. Like the second I got to grad school, it was like second week of grad school, I saw some undergrads going by and I muttered to one of my classmates, "Ugh, damn undergrads." He was like, "You were an undergrad 4 months ago."
I turned 30 and threw my back out within like a week. It was just like, fuck you. You're not an invincible 20-something anymore. You're an
Oh,
old man now.
Yeah,
I started balding at age 20. That was like, that's how I knew I was destined to be an old man at heart. So now I shave my head like a weirdo.
That's what my dad does.
Yeah, my dad, like he started balding in his 30s, and he just rolled with it. I'm like, I can't do what my dad did. I don't want to look like that at age 27. So head shaved.
Yeah, my dad shaved it all off the minute him and my mom got divorced. Like, she would just never allow
Never
for
went
it.
with it.
And like the second she was out of the picture, he was like, fuck this. I'm done with like the ring of curly hair around the back of my head.
Yeah, I think some men can pull it off. I'm not one of those men.
Larry David,
especially.
go for
Yeah,
it.
Larry David, definitely. Like Larry David, you can't imagine without it,
Yeah.
right? Or like if you're a monk and you can have that tonsure, and you're like,
yeah. I wonder if that was like
That makes
actually
sense.
like a haircut. They're like, yeah, we're all going this way naturally. Might as well go with it. Or if they're like, no, this is totally the haircut you need when you, serve God, right? Like,
yeah, I don't even understand if there's supposed to be religious significance to it. Like, I don't know.
I wonder if that's the original reason for the yarmulke, is to cover a bald spot.
Yeah, maybe. It's like,
I don't know. I'd have to ask. There's probably a very good reason somewhere in Jewish scripture about that. So, on that note, thank you to our listeners for listening to us blather on about tomatillo salsa and being old. We will see you next time. Take care.
bye.
See ya.